It is 1:30, so we're going to get started. Good afternoon. This is the regular meeting of the Finance Executive Committee. Today is Wednesday, March 10th, 2021. It is 1:30 p.m. I am the chairperson, Jennifer Ide, and so I'm going to call the meeting to order. And let me see if I know who is on the call. Ms. Kempson-Wright, can you do a quick roll call, because I'm not sure I can see who is on the line yet. Ms. Kempson-Wright, I don't know if you're not there, if you're on mute. All right. Santana, are you with us? All right, I think it looks like we have Councilmember Howard Shook, Councilmember J.P. Matsakite, Councilmember Matt Westmoreland, Councilmember Natalie Mosby Archibald, and Councilmember Joyce Shepard today, which is, that is all of our committee members. So thank you everybody for being with us today. That does.
You forgot to call me, Jennifer. Andre Dickens.
Oh, Mr. Dickens, I'm sorry. I'm getting off to a rocky start here. So Councilmember Andre Dickens is with us as well. So that makes 7 of us. So that's everybody. Thank you for being here. That constitutes a quorum. So we are going to get going. I believe Ms. Kempson-Wright is with us now. And if you could read the remote meeting statement, please.
Yes, this Finance Executive Committee meeting is being conducted remotely as advertised and is in accordance with the official code of Georgia 5014-1. The meeting will be conducted in conformance with Robert's Rules of Order and the Rules of Council as authorized by the City Code. The public may access the meeting by the following conference bridge: toll-free access 877-579-6743, conference ID 831-599-1256, which was noted on the Friday, March 5th public meeting notice. The public may also view the meeting on Channel 26, citycouncil.atlantaga.gov, or the Council's YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter pages via @ATL Council. All presentations are available on the Atlanta City Council Finance Executive Committee presentation page. The agenda was published and made available on Friday, March 5th via atlantacityga.iqm2.com. Public comment was accepted between the hours of 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. on yesterday, Tuesday, March 9th. All persons present on the remote council meeting conference bridge are requested to mute their phones and speakers. Additionally, speakers must be acknowledged by the presiding officer prior to speaking. Each council member is requested to open your Outlook email and minimize the screen. Amendments, substitutes, and informational documents were distributed to committee members earlier. Thank you all in advance for your cooperation.
Thank you, Ms. Kempson-Wright. And I believe I said that Councilmember Joyce Shepard is on the call, but if I missed her, she is on as well. So we do have the full committee today. First order of business is we need to adopt our agenda. We do have one item that came out of CDHS, but we don't need to amend our agenda for that. I'm just going to let the CD chair know that we're aware of that one and it's on the agenda. So I'll make a motion to adopt our agenda for today.
Second.
All right, let's open the vote on the agenda.
Second, Matsakite.
Okay, we'll take Matsakite. Let's open the vote.
The vote is open.
All right, there we go. 7 yeses, 0 no's. Our agenda has been adopted. We need to approve our minutes from our last meeting in February, so I'll make that motion.
Second, Matsakite.
All right, let's open the vote.
The vote is open.
7 yeses, 0 nos. Our minutes have been adopted. We, I believe, have a number of public comments today, so if we could hear from the public next, that would be great.
One moment.
Hi, this is Brandon Lai. I would like to see the SSD legislation continue to stay in committee. Pushing this through without appropriate debate, investigation, and modifications is not only a terrible idea, but will only cause more displacement like we've seen on the east side. This isn't about the merits of the Beltline. This is about the merits of this SSD as a funding mechanism and a specific piece of legislation. I appreciate that so many single-family homeowners who won't be paying this tax left so many comments in the Community Development Committee, and I imagine they are also leaving comments for this committee. However, their comments all framed the debate as completion of the Beltline so everyone could take a walk with their friends or nothing. That's not the debate here. The debate is how our tax dollars will be used and how ABI will be held accountable to use them properly. The debate is that if City Council should give our tax dollars over to a quasi-private entity who raised their own salaries by 5.9% in 2020. What demands are being made of ABI? What accountability is baked into the legislation? Why are those homeowners who want the Beltline so bad, who again won't be paying this tax, but whose property values will increase, not being asked to help shoulder this burden? Why are renters lesser citizens? That is what this legislation, as it currently stands, is saying. Please do not advance this legislation to full council until these issues are addressed, accountability is added, and the public has a chance to adequately review any amendments. If ABI misses the Woodruff Foundation's deadline because of that delay, then that's their own bleeping fault for playing politics instead of playing fair. I sent a large breakdown of my concerns to ABI. I sent a large breakdown of my concerns about ABI to Councilmember Westmoreland. Please ask him for the PDF that Johnny and Brandon sent him. Finally, Beltline rail now. Hope you all are having a good day. Cheers.
Hi, it's Elizabeth Hollister. I represent Upper West Side CID, which is in Sudbury 8 of the Beltline planning area. Our CID's biggest concern is that the SSD does not ensure that the 2 miles of future Beltline in our CID gets built. Right now, we are last on the implementation list, and when the SSD funds are combined with other funding sources, they only ensure that Beltline receives $300 million out of a $350 million price tag for finishing the trail. So the last $50 million of the capital stack represents our area. Already, our area, which has been an economic engine for the Beltline, has contributed over $70 million in the last 10 years to the tax allocation district, the TAD. And the group of TAD properties within our CID currently funds over 20% of the current TAD revenue. Our CID section of the SSD would make up the same or more percentage of the SSD revenue. So we're asking the Finance Exec Committee to amend the legislation to confirm that properties in Sudbury 8 will see some benefit that justifies our inclusion in the tax district. We're only supportive of the SSD if the tax collected from Sudbury 8 are spent only on the trail in Sudbury 8. Thank you.
Alan Urinary.
In 2019, my husband and I purchased a home in Reynoldstown, in part due to the proximity to Beltline. I realized the desire to complete the trail for the benefit of connectivity, but absolutely not at all costs. I cannot support this SSD because it is a strategic tax on renters and businesses, many of which are not able to participate in this upcoming election for council members. I don't believe this is a coincidence. While the vision for the Beltline is a grandiose one, it is coming at too high a cost. Why is council not questioning the ability of Atlanta Beltline Inc. to be good stewards of these funds? The organization is far overdue for a rebaselining. How can an organization that spent nearly $250,000 on printing in 1 year be the right organization to complete the trail? How much has Path Foundation spent on printing in that same time period? Why should our small businesses and renters be forced to make up Beltline's deficit when they have made no efforts to reduce their overhead? As a voter, as a resident, I ask for City Council to expect better accountability from an organization with a track record of over-promising and under-delivering, underestimating costs, and excess spending on overhead. I ask you to please vote no for this SSD. Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Tejas Kotak. I live in District 3. I support the Special Services District to complete the Beltline Trail. The design needs to be more equitable, though. There is a lot of discussion of the SSD being necessary to create more equity along the Beltline, but it cannot properly do that if its inherent design is inequitable. A lot of townhomes and single-family homes are currently around the Beltline, but these homes are exempt from the SSD tax. This creates a taxing and political disparity between owners and renters like myself. Exempting homeowners while having taxes on renters and commercial property owners, that makes me feel like a second-class Atlantan because I choose to rent rather than own. This fund will be a resource for everyone who lives by it, and many of those people now and in the future will be homeowners. They should help pay for this grand visionary piece of infrastructure. All of us are involved in this, and if all of us are involved in taxing and funding this, then the money can be raised more quickly, or it can be the same 10-year cycle, but the middle trade can be decreased. Perhaps some combination of both. Please include single-family homes and townhomes in the SSD before you pass it. If you are unable to do this, then I encourage you to scrap the SSD and study alternative, more equitable solutions. Thank you for your time.
Hi, my name is Daniel Valena, and I live on the west side of Atlanta. This is a message to the Finance Committee in relation to the new Beltline tax district. I honestly just have 2 points I would like to make. The first being that the Beltline, by its own admission, expects that the tax will be passed down from landowners to small businesses and tenants. And given the COVID pandemic and all the economic strife that has caused, I do not think that this is an appropriate time to be raising taxes on people who have been so impacted by the pandemic. So I would ask that the council delay this for 2 years, if not deny it out altogether. The second thing is that the Beltline has said that the shortfall is caused by a $1 billion deficiency in the tax allocation district that was originally set up, I believe, in 2005. So I don't know why there's grounds to trust the Beltline that this $350 million tax revenue mechanism will actually generate the money it says it will when they were $1 billion off the first time around. Given that there is what I would call the need for oversight over this, I would hope that the council would have some sort of oversight committee / auditing committee in place to make sure that we're not 3 or 4 years down the road having the Beltline approach the council again, asking to tax everybody to fund their project. So that's my comments, and I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is John O'Brien. I'm a resident and actually president of the Blandtown Neighborhood Association, which is in the Beltline Planning of Area 8, and currently within the boundaries of the Beltline Tax Allocation District. Just writing to express my strong opposition to the Beltline SSD ordinances that have been proposed, seeking to levy an additional 2 to 2.5 mil property tax from businesses and multifamily residences within half a mile of the Beltline corridor. Let me start by saying that I am supportive of the Beltline and certainly support development of the Beltline in Blandtown. That said, Blandtown and Sub-Area 8 are currently contributing more than 20% of the total revenue raised within the TAD, yet, and have been doing so, by the way, for about 15 years. Nonetheless, despite contributing substantial sums to ABI for over a decade, we've received little to no benefit. There have been no property acquisitions, albeit I think there might be one now. No planning solidified in Blandtown, no timetable for planning, much less completion of the Beltline. I'm loath to give another blank check to ABI after 15 years it hasn't even begun to put any of that money into our segment of the Beltline. In addition, submitting a SSD in the middle of a pandemic and a pandemic-fueled recession that's already straining local businesses seems to be tone deaf, in my opinion, and would target businesses that may or may not see any benefits from the tax revenue that will be collected if the route hasn't even been identified. Finally, there are 10 years remaining in the life of the Beltline, and they'll have $500 million more property tax revenue to put towards the Beltline during this time. I don't see why there needs to be more money poured into projects for the planning and construction of an actual Beltline that won't have any impact on the Blandtown neighborhood. Finally, I can only support this if there are clearly identified metrics and accountability built into the ordinances and written assurances that the money raised in Blandtown and Sub-Area 8 will be earmarked and guaranteed to result in public Beltline spaces actually being constructed in Blandtown and Sub-Area 8. Thank you for your consideration. And again, I just want to say thank you and John O'Brien, and if you need to reach out to me, please feel free to do so. Again, President of the Blandtown Neighborhood Association. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Frances Shaw. I'm speaking on behalf of King Cloud Arts Center LLC, who owns approximately 55 parcels, and King Cloud Condo, which is a total of approximately 99 parcels. We cover half mile of streetfront property on West Marietta Street Northwest and 12.5 acres of land. I want to explain why this needs to be a lower mill citywide tax delayed until 2022. Small businesses are currently still struggling in this pandemic. It's not over. Many businesses are hanging on by a thread. Landlords have taken rent reductions, and a significant majority of Georgians are not vaccinated. Your match for the Beltline tax includes multiple small businesses that are still unable to open their doors to the public due to COVID-19. Here is a real-life example of your proposed tax. At the 2.5 mils as listed in the AJC, your tax would bill a small nonprofit art theater that has been closed for a whole year, all 12 months, with no patrons, $800 in September. Government assistance is still difficult to obtain, with theaters still unable to apply for the Save Our Stages Fund. It seems like the Beltline does not know what is happening in the real world for Atlanta small businesses. Another example is a catering company who has been affected by the pandemic. They rent multiple studios for their kitchen, their freezer, to store their tables and chairs. Their SSD tax this September will be over $2,500. The Beltline has already broken their promise of transparency. None of our 100 studios spanning 5 street numbers received anything in the mail from the Beltline about this tax. They have not spoken to small business landlords. They have spoken to the largest rental companies and land developers in Atlanta. The council has not heard the voices of small businesses, artists, and nonprofits because the Beltline did not include them in this conversation. As a landlord, we've had over 20% turnover above our typical rate. This is due to small businesses closing from COVID-19. I know landlords who have taken massive rent reductions to try and keep their tenants' businesses afloat. When considering your tax, how can landlords pay extra when they have lost their tenants? This must be a citywide tax to reduce its financial burden. People come from all over the city to walk and enjoy the Beltline. I've heard this point repeatedly. This should be a citywide tax to reduce its financial burden. We are looking at paying $25,000 for the SSD this September. Taxing businesses near the Beltline will increase the rental rates. This will absolutely push out small businesses, artists, and nonprofits, and legacy commercial renters. How high will the rental rates need to be in 15, 20, 30 years to cover the increased property tax at SSD? You are taking away landlords' ability to reduce rent for artists and nonprofits. Making them apply to the Beltline for loans to cover their SSD gives the Beltline the power to decide who can rent along the Beltline. Furthermore, the Beltline has promised millions in small business funds that have never materialized. This must be a citywide tax with an equitable path plan for all neighborhoods to avoid undue burden on these important groups. Thank you for your time.
This is Robin Rosenberg, and I've been a commercial property owner in Blandtown for 40 years, which means, of course, supporting the Beltline through the CAD for a solid 15 years. Since I first heard about the SSD, I've spent a lot of time reading and going to many meetings, including several presentations from the Beltline. As a result, I'm calling to urge you to defy or deny the proposed SSD. During the past 15 years, we have seen virtually no investment in our area. We are now being asked to provide more funds to a project that is as yet undefined. When the Beltline started, there were drawings and plans for transit and more. To date, I understand there's a proposal out to begin planning and design, which means there is no plan about where the Beltline will be in the northwest sector or what it will include. My property might not even be within the half-mile either side area. And what started out as a proposed, quote, little tax, unquote, 2 mills has now been published as a request for 2.5 mills. It's not inconsequential. And given that this area has been described as the most difficult and final part of the Beltline, there seems to be no assurance that there will be sufficient funds to complete whatever is planned to be built. Of the current $350 million being sought, $100 million of philanthropic funds remains a mystery, and there doesn't seem to be a clear source for the final missing $50 million. We put down a down payment on a Cadillac and might end up with a goat path eventually. I hope if and when this SSD comes to pass, that it will be in response to an actual plan with tax money that comes from our area staying in our area, and that there will be solid accountability about how it is spent. Thanks for your time.
Hello, my name is Scott Ball. I am the owner of 292 Moreland Avenue, a property that is in the proposed SSD district. I'm calling to oppose the formation of the district. We are nowhere near the proposed Beltline corridor. We really were not even near the originally planned when it was going to go through Inman Park, but now it's going through the Martin Luther King station, so we are at least a mile from it and have no greater interest in it than any other Atlantan. The fact that you're trying to build this out on the backs of a few property owners in the district, rather than the whole city that will benefit, is unfair. We have already formed a CID and are planning additional tax levy on that district. We've had no input into this formation. There's been no referendum on it, as we have to do for our CID. And the 30 years that we will be paying that additional levy is an extraordinary amount. But just a few property owners in the city of Atlanta. And again, this is a citywide project that will benefit everyone. We have no direct immediate benefit to it because, as I said, the route has changed and we'll go through Martin Luther King Station, which is a good mile and a half for us. So, again, I strongly oppose this and would love to see a better process from that and other alternatives considered before pushing this on a few owners within a very small portion of the group that will benefit from it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kyle Steenland, and I live near the Beltline. And I'm calling the Finance Committee for a couple of questions about the proposed tax for the Beltline. One is that I've seen several meetings in which the tax is cited at 2 mills on property, but I noticed in the Atlanta Journal Constitution, the public tax increase raises up to 2.5 mills. So why was this not clear in the materials presented by the Beltline Committee? And the second question is, there was some discussion saying that there would be $7 million in funding to help small business programs, and many of the local small businesses cannot support a tax increase in 2021. And will there be any funds to help them this year? That's my second question. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Hi, this is Emma Tinsley representing the Old Fourth Ward Business Association. I'm calling to express my concerns about the Beltline Special Service District proposal. Lessons learned from the Old Fourth Ward and the East Side Beltline have shown that businesses have a hard time benefiting from the Beltline in the way that we would think they would because of the lack of pedestrian infrastructure elsewhere in the neighborhood. While the Beltline is a wonderful and attractive amenity for the East Side, our businesses that are a half mile off the Beltline have a hard time attracting folks from the Beltline when we have crumbling sidewalks, public safety challenges, poor lighting, and other resource needs. This proposal at this time will burden our most vulnerable population in the community, which are renters and leaseholders. Our small businesses are already struggling during a global pandemic, and there are so many resources that are needed in the community right now, and we can't support a proposal that takes needed resources out of the community at such a dire time. We are asking City Council to consider postponing the vote on this legislation and delaying the Special Service District to a later date when the City of Atlanta has recovered from the pandemic and our small businesses and our renters and our property owners are in a better place to take on the economic burden of an additional tax. In addition, we don't feel that the community engagement has been appropriate, and there are so many people in the neighborhood and in other neighborhoods that do not know that this tax proposal is being considered. We urge City Council and the Atlanta Beltline to work together with the community to find other solutions that are more equitable and more time and at a better time to complete the Beltline. We support the completion of this important project, but it can wait until our small businesses and our renters and our neighborhoods recover from the last year and a half of an economic downturn. Thank you, and I hope you will consider delaying this legislation.
Greetings to you, committee members and staff, and special greetings to you, citizens and voters of Atlanta who have tuned into these proceedings and are taking note of the degree to which public comments made by citizens are being honored or ignored. Ben Howard, Senior Advocate, Public Policy Analyst. Neighborhood Planning Unit R allows no committee reports, especially no reports dealing with finance. So let's talk finance, NTUR9. Let's talk about why you are supporting non-affordable housing in NTUR with a price point greater than $300,000. Let's talk finance, NTUR. Let's talk about why you formed an ad hoc education committee that will make recommendations for an educational project that has not been thoroughly vetted by senior citizens and other members of Neighborhood Planning Unit R. Let's talk finance, NTUR9. Let's talk about why you allowed no report of the Campbellton Road Business and Merchant Association, even though those businessmen and women pay dues of $100 per year. Let's talk finance, NTUR9. Let's talk about why Lynette L. Scott's so-called Cad program to clean up Campbellton Road got funded when at the time members of Mount Carmel Baptist Church had adopted Campbellton Road as their cleanup project, not paid for out of city funds. Let's talk finance, NTUR9. Let's talk about why you will allow no financial reports about the Cascade Nature Preserve and what it will take to repair the damage from all the break-ins there. Let's talk finance, NTUR9. Let's talk about why Ms. Jacobs is not giving financial reports as a representative for the Campbellton Road Tax Allocation District and no reports on the Invest in Southwest Atlanta program. Let's talk finance in 2021. NTUR9, on behalf of the citizens of NTUR, speak up, speak out. Vice Chair Antonina Robinson, Corliss Clare, Ricardo Jacobs, Alvin White, Lynette L. Scott, Allison Hathaway, Sherry Williams, and your NPUR9 cohort and supporters. Let's talk finance.
that has come up. So if everybody will just, whoops. I believe that was our last public comment. Thank you to everybody who called in. We need to do one little technical fix for a minute and fix the conference bridge so everybody can hold briefly. We're going to make sure it's all connected properly. Okay, we are back online. Thank you, everybody, for your patience on making sure we have our technology working right today. So we have 5 presentations today. We're going to start with our Georgia General Assembly legislative update from Jerome Jordan and Reese McCraney. Either Mr. Jordan or Mr. McCraney, take it away.
Thank you, Chair. This is Jerome Jordan. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I am.
All right. Thank you. As I mentioned, my name is Jerome Jordan. I'm Deputy Chief of Staff. On the call, we have Reese McCraney, and we also have Walter Benson, who are both part of our IGA team. First, I just want to say thank you for allowing us to come and give a brief update related to the General Assembly session, as I know that you have other reports and updates for this committee meeting. If we can move to page 2 of the presentation, just some information related to the legislative session of the 40-day legislative days. Today is the 30th legislative day. Sine Die is scheduled for March 31st. Crossover day was this past Monday. And with that, in this presentation, we will note some of the bills that we've been watching that have crossed over, some of the bills that we've been watching that haven't crossed over, with the caveat, though, just because the bills haven't crossed over, we'll still be monitoring to see if there are any amendments related to with the language from those bills that are added to bills that are crossed over, or also knowing that these bills that have been introduced this session that didn't cross over are still alive for next year's session. We can move to page 3. Just wanted to give a brief overview of some of the bills we've been monitoring that have crossed over, and then I'll defer to other members of the team to go on from there. One of the bills I wanted to note was HB 317, sponsored by Representative Stevens. This would impose taxes on short-term rentals. This is essentially the Airbnb VRBO bill that crossed over the House and will be heard in the Senate. HB 150, this is sponsored by Representative Williamson. This would preempt local governments from prohibiting specific energy sources. This also crossed over. In the areas of crime and public safety, 2 bills that are of note to a lot of people throughout the state are SB 10 and House Bill 534. SB 10 is sponsored by Senator Emanuel Jones, and House Bill 534 is sponsored by Representative Bonner. That's also the governor's bill. Both these bills address the issue of street racing. They both passed into the other chamber. They involve increased fines, mechanisms for that affect licenses of individuals who are convicted for certain penalties, and they also provide pathways for civil forfeiture of vehicles. There are differences to the bills, so as these go through, committees will continue to monitor whether any potential amendments are added. For example, SB 10 was amended on the floor on Monday took out one of its provisions that really differed from House Bill 534. HB 479, this is a bill sponsored by Representative Breeze. This repeals and changes the 150-year-old citizens arrest statute, makes some updates to that as this issue came into to the forefront last year related to the death of Ahmaud Arbery. A couple other things I wanted to note on some of the voting bills that have gone through: House Bill 531 and SB 241. This council last week passed two resolutions expressing opposition to these. One specifically expressed opposition to House Bill 531, but they also, both resolutions encompass some of the language, oppose some of the language that's included in both bills. As I mentioned, those bills have crossed over, and we're going to continue to monitor and see where those goes and see what other amendments may be offered or added to that. With that, we can move to page 4, and I will turn it over to Walter Vincent to talk about bills that did not cross over. Hopefully,
That's fine, Mr. Vincent. Yep.
Can you hear me?
Now we can.
Okay, great. I'm sorry. Yes. Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Just to pick up on the bills that did not make crossed over in the area of the county airport property tax. HB 269, sponsored by Representative Blanton, and HB 151, HB 642, and HB 643, sponsored by Representative Bernot. HB 269 basically states that wanted to make the current property that for Hartsville Jackson to be private property versus public, and the bill sponsored by Bernot wants to waive the ad valorem tax exemption for public properties owned outside of 20% outside of a municipality. We're currently working with Clayton County officials on an agreement of services provided, reimbursement for services provided. So we're currently doing that now. But these bills, of course, did not make crossover, and we are monitoring them as far as any language that may or may not be amended to other pieces of legislation as we draw near the end of the session. Under crime and public safety, HB 368, which is sponsored by Representative Ballinger, which is Georgia Bureau of Investigation, which bill would make GBI the primary law enforcement agency for investigating deaths of individuals 18 years old or younger. And Senate Bill 133, sponsored by Senator Davenport, which will prohibit the use of no-knock search warrants. I'll now pass it over to Reese McCraney.
Thank you, Walter, and thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee for your time today. As you'll see from the presentation, so we're tracking several anti-trans bills. We're pleased that they did not make it past crossover day, but as of course Jerome indicated, we're still vigilant to ensure that they don't get resurrected between now and the end of session. So there were 4 total. These are just a couple that were pretty atrocious, and so we're watching those. SB 266 and HB 276, which would essentially prevent trans girls from participating in high school sports on an all-girls school team. 2 others that were part of that as well, HB 372 and HB 401. Those do not make it on crossover either, but we will remain vigilant to ensure that anti-trans legislation does not continue to make it or be introduced. And if we go to the next page, Before we take questions, just a quick update on the urban enterprise zone legislation. That is with Ledge Council now currently. Representative B. Wynn is working with State Legislative Council to introduce that, and of course would update the existing UEZ for additional workforce housing and have more equitable distribution of economic development opportunities in the city. And so I'll just pause there. I know that's a lot that we've gone over, but happy to take any questions. We and the team are.
And Madam Chair, this is Jerome again. I'd just also like to add on that the UEZ legislation, as Reese mentioned, this was in our legislative package related to affordable housing. We're hoping that we'll be able to move that this session through local legislation, but of course we'll keep the council informed. If that legislation is to pass, that would just give the city additional tools related to affordable housing that we'd have to come back to the council to vote on how to utilize. But with that, as Reese mentioned, we'd be happy to take any questions.
All right, colleagues, does anybody have questions for the Government Affairs team? I am not.
I have one. I have one question. Have there been any bills positioned related to minimum wage?
Thank you, Councilman Dickens. That's a very good question. There are no active bills related to it, but we'll do a search to see if there are any that sort of encompass the area, but there weren't any, to my knowledge, that crossed over. But we'll take a look to see if there are any that were introduced that just didn't receive a hearing or didn't receive a hearing and didn't cross over.
Okay, thank you.
All right, anyone else have a question for Government Affairs? I do not see any hands up. So thank you all for being here today. It sounds like you've been busy. And we will certainly reach out.
And Chair Odd, I'm sorry, I just something occurred to me when from what Councilmember Dickens said. I think there was a bill related to minimum wage that this week we called HB 499, but it hasn't received, hasn't been crossed over. But I can send you that information.
Okay, I'm sure Mr. Dickens would appreciate that. All right, I don't see anybody else with their speaker button raised, so thank you for being here, and we look forward to hearing from you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. I am going to skip over to, for right now, Finance has asked that they be our last presentation, so that's going to take us to AIM, if AIM is ready to give their quarterly update.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
I can, thank you.
Hi, this is Ty Hayes, the interim CIO for AIM, and I'll be giving a brief update today just on the activities that's been going on with AIM so far this year. All right, next slide. So I wanted to begin the presentation by mentioning our telework posture that we're in now. It's been a little bit over a year, and AIM has been able to continue services with some adjustments to continue to support the city. We have implemented a curbside service desk for any issues that cannot be resolved remotely. We do have methods for individuals to bring the equipment in and drop it off, and we have loaners and so forth to support that. We've increased the use of the productivity tools and trainings to, again, help with the adjustment of being off-premise and being able to collaborate and continue business. And we've also adjusted our device deployment strategy that again helps with our replacement of devices if users are having issues at home, but also methods to still onboard and offboard individuals as there's transition within the city. Next slide. I just wanted to highlight again, the increased productivity tools that are being used across the city. We've, of course, seen a significant increase in our Teams and Zoom usage. We, do feel like there's a need and there's some differentials between the two that really support us having both, but it also allows us to have a little bit of business continuity should we have any issues, being able to still have conferences and video sessions as necessary. Next slide. To also support just the changes within the organization and how we're functioning, we are adjusting our service desk hours that will be changing effective March 18th. And those hours will be between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. We're doing this because we're just, with the metrics that we're receiving, we're just seeing that there is an increased call volume during these periods of time. And we want to make sure that we're still able to provide adequate response time and service. Next slide. So we spoke to council about 18 months ago. We introduced our application rationalization program, and we're still very well within that. Just as a reminder, we had 4 areas that were focus areas for AIM. Those would be permits and licensing, customer relationship management solutions, looking at all of our enterprise agreements and seeing where there's a lot of duplication and redundancy, and also our enterprise content management system. So I'll speak to kind of the active projects that are underway right now under this program. Next slide. We're very pleased to announce that we have completed the migration of Hartsville Jackson Atlanta International Airport to Office 365. Previously, there were 2 different email systems, and so the 2 were not talking, and it presented a lot of different challenges for there to be collaboration with the rest of the city. And so now with that integration, it gives the airport users access to the directories and being able to send emails directly within the city, accessing the calendars and being able to schedule. And then also it allows them the ability to access their files anywhere, the way that the rest of the city was using it. We also have an increased security with this model because it protects all of the data, and if there were any issues, it has built-in backups, and we can roll back and still retrieve that data. So this was a huge project for us, and we want to thank the leadership at the airport for their support and their flexibility while we're in this COVID status, because we did have to adjust logistically getting this done, but we're very proud of this project. Next slide. Under our application rationalization as well, we have had a soft launch of what we're calling the Atl Core Platform, which is the system is InterGov, and it supports our Atlanta Police Department, the Mayor's Office of Special Events, as well as the Office of Revenue. Again, there was a soft launch in October. However, we're still working through some minor things that were left over, including our payment gateway, and we're working directly with the vendor and finance to resolve those issues and completely launch this program. Another added benefit with this, we were able to retire the legacy mainframe system that was still in the city. So we've been able to completely shut that down, and we've repurposed a lot of that funding to migrate a lot of that legacy data to the cloud and provide report capabilities as necessary. Next slide. We are also in the final stages of launching a new platform to support our the 311, our customer service management platform and field service management. This project impacts a lot of organizations across the city. All of our customer-facing organizations are all users of this new system. We're scheduled to go live March 22nd, and we are now focusing on training and making sure there's change management and the users are comfortable with the system. As part of this project, we will also be sunsetting the legacy Siebel system and making sure that we have all of that legacy data from the platform integrated into our data warehouse. Next slide. So I'll transition now into our support of the Atlanta Police Department. We have a renewed partnership with the police department as things are changing. They are relying so much more on technology, and we've been partnering with them on a lot of their initiatives, and so I'll run through a few of those. So in terms of the police oversight and transparency program, we've been working with the police department to automate a lot of their procedures. So there is a public data visualization that will provide just summary data, metric data around issues that are going on. The form automation was a manual process that the police department was having to endure. We've now automated that, and it feeds directly into their evidence.com platform, and it allows them to capture supplemental information about use of force incidents. As part of this program, we are also working with ACRB and APD on public evidence submission and case management. And then kind of related, but not related, we're also supporting the police department right now with their move of their training center. They are moving to Atlanta Metropolitan College, and we're working with them to make sure that that's a smooth transition. Next slide. So we've recently implemented a new record management system for APD. This allowed them to meet their NEBRIS compliance. They had been out of compliance for a while, but we were able to complete that compliance within 3 months of going live, which was a huge accomplishment for APD, as well as we still were able to migrate a lot of the legacy incident reports and data to the appropriate systems within APD. Next slide. We have a project that's currently underway, which is the Cad Replacement for APD. It's replacing their legacy PSSI CAD system with Motorola. We've launched the first phase of this for the airport operations. They went live December 20th, and we're working right now to bring all of the other sites online by April of this year. So this project is actually underway, but it's a huge project for APD, and it affects how they do their work. Next slide. So cameras have been a hot topic and a focus across the city. And so we've recently stood up a cross-functional team of all of the camera users throughout the city. This was really done to help us look at, develop some standards and processes for how we need to maintain those cameras, having a maintenance agreement and SLAs for response when they're down. This is not only for the cameras that are being purchased by the Police Foundation, but this is also our internal cameras that all still feed into the VIC for APD. The other thing that we're wanting to do with this is establish some standards and terms and agreements in terms of how we need those platforms to be supported. And then finally, in this area, we're working right now to bring the AUC cameras back online for the VIC. We disconnected these cameras in the past because there was a breach on the other side, and so we are re-architecting how we pull those cameras back in to make sure that we're able to know if there's a security incident and we can respond timely. So we're looking to have that completed by next week. Next slide. I mentioned this a little bit, but the Video Integration Center, which is also known as the VIC, we've been working with APD to reimagine this. They really want to have a real-time crime center, be able to respond a lot quicker, and have the video footage during an incident, as well as be able to capture that data and retain it for, case case management and so forth. So we're working with them through this. We are launching a kickoff March 10th, and it's looking to really upgrade their current infrastructure and future-proof it a little bit so that it allows a little bit of growth for the police department. Next slide. I'm really excited about this. We are also beginning our cloud transformation. We spoke to you about this in the past and let you know that we were doing some research. Well, we're full on in it right now. We have been working to consolidate 5 data centers across the city into one optimized data center. As part of this strategy, we are also looking to implement a cloud-first strategy to make sure that we are minimizing our on-premise footprint, which will also provide cost savings from a facilities management, cooling, power, and also the capital cost of refreshing that equipment. All of those things will be significantly reduced as these projects are brought online. Next slide. And finally, right now we are actually in the process of migrating the data center at City Hall and Watershed Management to AWS, Amazon Web Services. This is a private cloud for the city. It is our environment. It will be managed by city employees. Again, I spoke about the Video Integration Center just a moment ago, but we're also working with the police department on a strategy for E911 and looking to provide them a backup, a redundancy, or failover capability should there be an incident at their primary location. Also, we are changing the phone systems that they were all end of life. This is really supporting all of our call centers. These are all now cloud-based. And then we have started the discovery of our next phase for cloud transformation for the airport, and we're starting with their backup systems and some of their critical systems that need to migrate to the cloud. So I'll end there, and I'm open for any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hayes. Does anybody have any questions for Ames? All right, I do not see anybody with their speaker button pushed. Thank you for being here, and we will, sounds like you've been very busy, and we will hear from you again next quarter.
Thank you.
All right, next, let's hear from the Department of Procurement.
Greetings and good afternoon, Chairwoman Hyde and members of the Finance Committee. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to update you on the activities of the department that took place in Q2. We are firing on all pistons. We are simultaneously incorporating changes in process while trying to get contracts out that have been in the hopper. Next slide, please. I'd like to cover some of our stats, summaries of our activities related to COVID-19 and the pandemic responses, our status as far as staffing and new hires, and related to that, I will also talk about our new training program for staff members along with operational enhancements we're making. We'll be looking at our new vendor numbers, and finally, we will be looking at a sneak peek of some upcoming operational initiatives. We knew you had quite a few presentations this afternoon, so we will try to be as brief as possible, Councilwoman Hyde. Next slide, please. Quarterly statistics. So let's talk about getting the contracts out and getting the new ones into the system. During this time period, we closed 46 different executed agreements. If we included the number of amendments we did, that number is actually much higher, over 150. The average time it took to close these agreements was 254 days. And that included agreements such as IFBs, our request for proposals, sole source agreements, special procurements, and emergency procurements. Now, why 254 days? As mentioned in the opening, something that we have been concentrating on is trying to close out projects that have been in the hopper a while. So each solicitation has its own personality, and with that, I mean different unique challenges that might lead it to take longer to close. And we had some agreements that had unique challenges, such as one, for instance, that closed but had a principal of the firm that got sick during the process. So we had to wait a while to get it executed. On the flip side, on our task orders, we definitely have been speeding up and turning those around in a day in some cases, and I believe 2 days on average. So while we're delivering the executed contracts, we are also staying busy trying to intake new solicitations. During that 3-month period, we initiated over 40 new solicitation and also awarded 14 contracts. So how are we doing on our purchase orders? We are ranking them out. We had over 2,600 POs, but that was slightly down from the quarter before. Why? Historically, there is a spike in numbers at the beginning and end of the budget cycle. The July, August, September period last year was super busy as projects initiated in our early pandemic operations were active. Purchase orders were related to COVID-19, architectural and design services, office supplies, equipment rental, along with many other items. And as a caveat, it's not always easy to forecast PO demands as requisitions are submitted based on the need of department. Regarding needs of departments, Santana, if we could go to the next slide, please. COVID-19. The department has been collaborating with departments enterprise-wide on making sure we had the resources needed to assist the public and to continue to operate, folks. I really wish I could highlight, Councilwoman Ide, every member of the staff who are up literally in the wee hours of the morning to work on some of these projects to make sure our people are safe. We turn around our POs as quickly as possible to support projects like the Corona Relief Fund grocery program that Welcome Atlanta developed for residents, regardless of language spoken. And they did a great program that employed the use of bilingual program coordinators to coordinate food distributions in Spanish and English with community navigators, delivery drivers, and other vital stakeholders. We also had the temperature scanning kiosk project to purchase 25 automated temperature scanning kiosks for the Department of Enterprise Asset Management to monitor temperatures of individuals entering the city buildings and mitigate the risk of corona transmission. With the procurement of these resources, committee members, we also remain lock and step with our CRF team. Finance, Landmark, and others to make sure that the expenditures were memorialized to make sure we were getting reimbursed for these expenditures. And many thanks to Jerry Deloche for the really hard work on that front. During that Q2 period, we did receive reimbursement. Next slide, please. Staffing. The changes we needed to make at the department focused largely on people, process, and technology committee members. We looked at structural changes, and I really wish time permitted because we brought in an amazing new deputy CPO who we stole from the state, Dana Greer. The charge was to improve our operations and streamline processes, so I brought her in to assist us, as she has well over 20 years with executing sourcing strategies and completing really complex and large procurement projects. To further improve our processes and use of technology, we initiated the acquisition of a Innovation Resource Director position to assist in implementing our digital strategy. And I believe that's actually on the street as we speak. So if you know of someone, please direct them to apply. We hired a senior ERP specialist to assist in changing our processes as well, committee members. You'll see we updated our submittal docs. We implemented new dashboards, usually utilizing our Atl Cloud Oracle platform. And the goal is to deliver timely, consistent, and efficient procurement services to all of our user agencies. And while we made changes to processes and technology, our biggest effort up till now was investing in training our people. We had disparate advice coming out of the department, so for the first time, we formalized the training program to include a 22-hour course for our managers. And this way, everyone was on the same page when providing advice to your staff. We included a very robust program that covered items such as responsiveness, Oracle, Atl Cloud procurement modules, contract modules, iSupplier, and of course, open records. And we carried that emphasis on training to our weekly staff-wide meetings as well by bringing subject matter experts to the department to cover topics like iPro activity. Next slide, please. Training. So that training extends beyond the department. We continue to provide supplier-side training to do business with the city of Atlanta. And we're really sensitive, of course, to the cost bidders face when being found non-responsive. So we are also trying to drive down on non-responsiveness holdings by educating the public and, again, editing our instructions to make it easier to do business with the city. Next slide, please. Operations. As previously mentioned, we looked at improving processes at the department. One of the assets we are now leveraging, of course, is Oracle Atl Cloud. We will be expanding the discussion of these changes in future meetings, but in short, we've piloted new dashboards to better manage our solicitations, to drive down the time needed to complete them. And committee members, we continue to collaborate more with the user departments to establish better processes. An example is our work with Watershed through the Joint Acquisition Project Development Team. They review process maps and service level times to assist us in doing a better job. We also meet regularly now with finance to address payment issues such as direct pays and process improvements. So what's coming up next? What's the sneak peek? On the renewal notice and expiration solution side, we're developing better internal triggers to reduce the need for emergency and special procurement legislation. Transparency. We have two very cool technology projects that we have begun that you will soon hear about that will really, I believe, expand public transparency. And the public, I think, will be excited about. Vendor communications. One of the things that I noticed was that there were repeating reasons for bidders getting kicked out of the procurement process. So to combat that, we are leveraging our communications and media platforms to teach the business community how to avoid being found non-responsive. Folks, that's my presentation, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this afternoon. I will entertain any questions that you have.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Anybody have questions about the procurement presentation? All right, I do not see anybody with their hand up. I do also want to say I believe that we were joined today by Councilmember Carla Smith. I think is on the line for the meeting. So nice to have you with us, Councilmember Smith. All right, thank you, Mr. Clark. We will hear from you next quarter and appreciate all of your work. Next, let's go to the Internal Auditor's Office quarterly update with Ms. Amanda Noble.
Good afternoon. This is Amanda Noble, City Auditor, here to present our quarterly report. If you move to the first slide, this infographic summarizes our activity for fiscal year 2021 to date, about 8 months. We've released 6 audit reports, 2 since our last quarterly report, the Department of Watershed Management, Capital Projects Contract Management, and controls over CARES Act and FEMA funding in response to COVID-19. We have 8 audits in progress that I'll talk about on the next slide. We have been holding remote audit committee meetings since August. The committee meets every other month. Because the audit committee must vote to approve public release of audit reports during their meetings, release might be delayed beyond when we are actually complete. But we are hopefully working on that. We are a little bit behind on follow-up of open audit recommendations. We've met with 2 departments so far this year, but haven't closed recommendations. We're continuing to work with the COO's office to schedule meetings with departments, but our primary liaison has moved into a new role, and there's been some turnover in some of the departments, so that's set us back a little bit. We have the current list of open recommendations posted on our intranet site. Currently, we have 205 open audit recommendations made to 16 departments. This list does not include 146 individual recommendations made in the actuarial audit that we contracted with Deloitte to perform. The pension board has contracted with Deloitte to help transition third-party administrators and also follow up on implementation of audit recommendations. So we should be able to report on those as well. We are continuing to work with AIM and Department of Procurement to implement an electronic audit work paper system that has enhanced follow-up reporting capabilities and will improve security and efficiency and facilitate recommendation follow-up. Council approved the resolution to allow us to contract with the vendor in January, and the contract execution is in process now. So we anticipate having a contract in place soon to get a timeline for implementation. To date, we have released 16 iPro reports on solicitations totaling an estimated value of $331 million. We reported 36 findings in these reports and have an additional 62 solicitations under review. I believe 34 of the solicitations have been canceled. Next slide, please. These are the 8 audits in progress, and actually it should be 9. I forgot to list one that we started. The forensic audit services that we have contracted, fieldwork is completed, and we're drafting a report. Our audit of APD hiring is in the Department for Management review. Also, the APD liquor license and enforcement management is reviewing the draft. We're scheduled to meet with Chief Ryan and his staff to discuss both these audits next week. We just sent our draft audit of the Office of Contract Compliance to the department for review, and we also have an exit conference scheduled with Bruce Bell and his team next week. So these audits should be wrapping up soon and released this fiscal year. I was hoping to have at least 1 or 2 of them approved by the audit committee at their next meeting, April 1st. I'm not sure if we'll be able to get responses in time to do that, but they would definitely be released in June. We have recently started, I have 4 audits listed, but in fact, we started 5 new projects. We're reviewing NIST cybersecurity. AIM is following the NIST, that's National Institute of Standards and Technology cybersecurity framework, which is a compilation of voluntary standards, guidelines, and best practices to manage cybersecurity-related risks. The audit will test selected control activities to assess whether they're working as intended. We also have a project to develop continuous audit routines. Continuous auditing leverages technology to test controls and identify potential red flags in transactions as or soon after they occur. And we've been meeting with AIM, Department of Finance, and other stakeholders to identify high-risk transactions to test. We're also hoping to roll some of the recommendations from the Forensic Audit Services contract into tests that we can run on an ongoing basis. We have just started an audit on enforcement of building and zoning code violations. The audit will assess enforcement procedures in Department of City Planning's Office of Building and Zoning compared to industry best practices. We are starting an audit of recreation fees to look at the process for setting fees and whether they're equitable across the city. And we have also started an audit of street lighting, which I failed to get on the list here. which will assess operations, maintenance, and costs compared with industry best practices. The audit of solid waste services that we had planned and, in fact, started a year ago is still on pause at the request of the city attorney due to legal concerns. Next slide, please. This slide shows our organizational chart. We've been fully staffed since October. As you know, the IPRO team, 3 people, will be shifting to the Office of Inspector General. The staff are remaining with us until a personnel paper can be submitted to accomplish the transfer to the IG's office, which I think we've determined the best way to accomplish that is as part of the budget legislation. So in the meantime, the IG has been joining our weekly IPRO status meetings and is CC'd on communication. And with that, I would be happy to answer questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dibble. Anybody have questions regarding the audit presentation? All right, I do not see any hands up, so thank you, Ms. Dibble, for being here, and we look forward to hearing from you next quarter, and probably we'll hear from you about something before that as well. All right, we're going to circle back now to the Department of Finance's second quarter report.
Hello? Okay.
We can hear you.
Thank you, Madam. Okay, good. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity today to provide an update on the second quarter results for this fiscal year. And what you'll see in this presentation and what we hope to provide will be the actuals for revenue and expenses with the projection of where we will end the fiscal year for all of the operating funds. And we will also have an overview of the American Rescue Plan, which I believe just passed Congress about 20 minutes ago. And we'll look at its impact on the city's financial for this fiscal year. And we will also wrap it up with an update on where we are with our investment portfolio, as well as a review of our debt portfolio. And with that, we will get started. Ms. Wilson, are you on the line?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Okay. If you have the presentation pulled up we will go ahead and get started. We will cover, as Mr. Council said, high-level quarterly review of the second quarter, the general fund revenue and expenses, the enterprise fund, the debt investment portfolios, and some information on the American Rescue Plan. If we move to slide 4, you'll see that the quarterly, we're covering the second quarter fiscal year 2021, July through December actuals. We'll provide a summary analysis of the city's budget to actual performance, but we also will project out the remainder of the fiscal year and identify and address any significant issues that may impact year-end performance. There will obviously be some conversations around COVID and COVID-related revenue as well as expenses. We move to slide 6. We'll start with an overview of some of the summary of the key points on revenue and expenses. Beginning with revenue, our property tax and sales tax are on track to meet or exceed forecast at this point. As you've seen in our monthly revenue update, we have property tax that's pretty much on target to meet what we budgeted, not impacted this year by COVID. And our sales tax are actually tracking a little bit better than what we had budgeted. There are 4 revenue categories that are at risk of not meeting the budget forecast. And that on the expense side, as of the second quarter, our expenses are at about 50.4% of the funded budget. And we know that typically we will spend a little bit more in the second half of the year than in the first half. Contrary to how our revenues come in. So our revenue comes in heavy on the first half of the year due to property tax due dates, but our expenses tend to be a little bit heavier in the second half of the year. There are two expense categories that are at risk of ending over budget, and that's primarily in personnel and employee benefits, mainly driven by hazard pay and our group insurance increase and fleet-related charges. The projected expense overrun for year end is about $16.5 million, or 2.4% of the expense budget. However, we know that there is approximately about $20 million of general fund expenses that are reimbursable from FEMA, and these have not been netted against our year-end projections on the expense side. So we do still anticipate getting FEMA reimbursement, the timing of which we're not sure, but there is work in process. FEMA does have our reimbursements that they're working through, and we will submit more. At the end of the second quarter, given the projected revenue shortfall, we are looking for revenue supplement with the American Rescue Plan, and Ms. Bartley will talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. We move to the next slide, slide 7. Ms. Felicia Daniel will walk us through this on the revenue projection.
All right, Ms. Daniel, you with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Excellent.
I could hear you, but now I can't anymore. All right, I can't hear Miss Daniel anymore. Ms. Kenson-Wright, can you hear me?
Yes, Madam Chair, I can hear you. We are trying to get her reconnected. It appears her line was disconnected on her end.
Okay. All right. Well, let's give a minute so we can get our finance folks back online. I am not sure what's happened with Miss Daniel. Oh, are you back?
Yeah.
Okay. If we have Miss Daniel, that's great. If not, maybe we could skip to another part of revenue.
Yes, if we can you hear me, Madam Chair?
I can hear you.
Okay. So if we can get Ms. Daniels on, I was going to suggest that we can just move to the expense side of the equation and come back to Ms. Daniels, if that's okay.
Okay, let's do that. That's great.
Okay. All right. Mr. Bell, are you online?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. This is Charles Bell. As we look at this slide, I have two slides to address with you. They're both on expenses. And this first one deals with expenses as we have it categorized by account group. As you see there, it's the bottom of the first numeric column here. The budget is $680.7 million. We spent $342.76 million through the first 6 months of the fiscal year, which is just slightly slightly over 50% mark. But we do anticipate spending another $354.5 million January through June. That would take us to a $697.27 million mark, which would render us a deficit with performance of $16.5 million, just a 2.4% tab over. As you look back up the column there, next to the last column dealing with the dollars, the primary impetus dealing with that $16.5 million deficit is in the personnel services and employee benefits account group. That number is $20.8 million. And as you look through the margin there, notes in the right column, you'll see that the overwhelming majority of that deficit is due to hazardous pay, something that we're dealing with this year, but was not budgeted for. And then we have about $7.5 million left dealing with salaries and benefits. And of course, in that case, we're talking about health, pension, Medicare, and employee benefit costs as well in terms of retiree pay. I do want to call your attention to the fact that we're not only talking about hazardous pay to the tune of $13.1 million, but other costs that are related to COVID-19 expenses. And it's about $6 million, which takes us to about $19.1 million. And that's a very important point because as you compare that to the year-end forecasted deficit, it's $16.5 million. And so it eclipses the deficit. I guess I do need to mention the fact that our interfund and interdepartmental charges also will finish the year. We project at a deficit position of about $4.1 million. Maybe just a tad over half of that is due to repair and maintenance for our fleet. In talking with our people in fleet, we understand that the rates are pretty much set so that there's a break even in terms of the department's performance. And when we talk about that, we're talking about accounting for indirect costs as indirect costs and I lost my train of thought here. But there are two things as we talk about indirect costs and again, COVID-related activities that impact that department. But collectively, those three we forecast will be about $4.1, almost $4.2 million contributing. As we go to the next slide, and the next slide talks about performance on a departmental basis. Are we there yet? Unless my computer froze.
Yeah, Charles, we're there.
Okay. you'll see the departments there listed on the left, and the same information going across the lower axis. And as you roll on over till you get to the FY21 variance year-end numbers in terms of dollars, you'll again see that $16.5 million. We have about 10 departments that we feel will finish the year in a deficit position. But the two that kind of jump out at you are police and fire. Similarly, as you look in the margin there on the right, close to the 50% mark in terms of the deficits for those two. Both are dealing with hazardous pay. $6.6 million for police and $2.6 million dealing with fire services. So those two, again, are the driving force. In terms of police and fire, those are the driving forces of the deficit. We do have similar situations in terms of overruns dealing with salaries and benefits in both cases. And also, as we kind of indicated on the first slide there, similar cases are dealing with repair and maintenance of the fleet. We do want to highlight the fact, though, that as you look at what's happening with COVID, hazardous pay and other COVID-related costs, about $19 million, very close to the $20 million alluded to earlier in this presentation by Ms. Wilson, deal with hazardous pay, COVID-related pay. And that $19 million, as we see here, eclipses the $16.5 million deficit. Those are the two larger ones. If you'd like me to try to touch on the other departments or many of those that we also have deficits, I think we have maybe three to four that are over $1 million. Would you like me, Madam Chair, to touch on those as well?
Sure, just briefly.
Okay. As you're going up to the top, I think the second department deals with executive offices. We're looking at $2.4 million there. I guess one of the things of note here is that corrections is in the mix here. It's a part of the Office of Constituent Services. And so when we look at it from an overarching view, about $2.1 million in salaries and benefit costs are driving that deficit. We also have situations where we're leading to overruns dealing with about $869,000 in overtime, $814,000 in hazardous pay, and another $162,000 or so dealing with uniforms. And so those are the driving factors as we look at the $2.4 million deficit in executive offices. As we turn our attention to AIM, we're looking at just under $2.2 million in terms of the deficit. First up to discuss would be about a $615,000 overrun in personnel. Again, COVID is a factor. We're looking at about $115,000 there. Unanticipated use of extra help, we feel will be about $143,000, and then about $200,000 in salaries. We had some critical positions that needed to be approved, but were not contemplated in the budget for FY21. But the overarching thing there in terms of AIM is about a $1.6 million overrun in terms of the AT&T telephone account. That's the driving factor there, dealing with that $2.17 million forecasted. As we look at loan, we're looking at about a $2.5 million deficit. This is a pretty much a situation where clearly it's the result of unforeseen legal matters that have arisen during the course of the year. We have several one-time occurrences and unanticipated legal matters. As an example, we've had the Kemp lawsuit, a review of OCC, and the disparity study, which is a carryover from FY20 into FY21. Get on down, we've talked about fire and police, Department of the, Office of the Solicitor, We're looking at a little bit more than $1 million deficit. Personnel is driving that at about $959,000. This is a carryover of personnel costs to support community prosecution initiatives, but this, of course, is done with full-time personnel, and that's what's driving that, the payment of that. Dean, we're looking at about a $600,000 to $20,000 deficit. It's primarily attributable to contract services, whose year-end forecast exceeds the budget of about $640,000. Projections include a slight increase for the new janitorial and security contract, which were based off of prior year actuals and spending patterns. The supply account will reflect a year-end savings of about $341,000, and that's a part of the offset to what we mentioned earlier in terms of the 640 versus the 620. And then personnel expenses are also forecasted to exceed budget by about 310, and that has everything to do with hazardous waste. Those are the larger deficits, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Does anybody?
Yes.
Does anybody have questions on this? I can, Mr. Counsel.
Okay. I'm sorry for interrupting.
Oh, no, that's okay. Okay. You know what? Let's go ahead and finish. Do we have Ms. Daniel back available so we can go back to her?
Yeah. No, I'm not sure just what's going on with her technology-wise, but Ms. Wilson will actually cover that slide.
Okay. Let's do that, and then I'll just wait till the end for questions.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for your patience.
Thank you. I'm not sure if Ms. Daniel was able to get back on. She was trying to, but if not, if we can go back to slide 7. Ms. Daniel, were you able to reconnect? Okay. Well, we'll keep moving. We begin with the FY21 budget. $680 million by major category. This includes a $41 million supplement from fund balance. Absent the fund balance supplement, the general fund revenue from normal city operations is $639 million. Most of this will look familiar to you as we have been doing the monthly general fund revenue updates. The FY21 budget, of course, was developed around many uncertainties with COVID-19, which included a key assumption that the COVID-19 crisis would have peaked and be managed within 6 to 8 months. However, we're a year into it, and we continue to experience financial implications on several of our major revenue categories. The second quarter year-to-date, July through December actuals were $396 million. This represents 62% of the total $639 million budget. Along the lines of historical trends, the city collects more revenue in the first half due to the property tax receipts, as I mentioned earlier. Projections for the remaining 6 months of the fiscal year, January through June, total $215 million, which results in an FY21 year-end forecast of $611 million. About $28.5 million less than the FY21 adopted or funded budget, less the fund balance supplement. This represents about a 4.5% decrease. The revenue categories that have sustained the general fund, as mentioned, were property taxes and sales tax loss. Property taxes through December 31st, we've achieved a 94% collection rate, and we expect to continue to receive those over the course of the next several months and meet what we have anticipated on property taxes. Loss is trending higher than year-to-date projections as of December 31, and we expect to end the fiscal year around $6 million higher than the budget. The material revenue deficiencies are primarily a function of COVID-related financial impacts in alcohol beverage, license and permit, mainly licenses, fines and penalties, and hotel motel tax major categories. The alcohol beverage is directly related to COVID-induced restaurant closure to protect the public health of the community. This category represents alcohol excise taxes, such as tax by the drink and wholesale alcohol distribution revenue. The restaurant industry is especially impacted by COVID-related social distancing mandates and consumer health concerns. These businesses are beset with financial challenges to sustain their operations, resulting in lower revenue in the city. Licenses and permits is directly related to COVID impacts on the business community. This category represents alcohol licensing revenue, and these businesses are faced with financial challenges to sustain their operations, resulting in lower revenue for the city as well. Fines and penalties are directly related to COVID-induced closure of city courts and lower traffic violations and parking enforcement. Generally, traffic citations represent about 80% of the caseload. And although the city has lifted moratorium on issuing parking citations, there is a lower expectation of an immediate V-shaped recovery where parking violations are immediately restored to pre-COVID volume. The rise of telework options and changed driving patterns has reduced the volume of daily commuters into the city. Hotel motel is directly related to the depressed demand stemming from COVID-19. The erosion of business convention and tourism activity has reduced demand, hotel occupancy, and of course, resulting in lower room rates as well. The year-end projections based on the second quarter year-to-date actuals have two primary assumptions. One is the trend of the first half of FY21 will continue through the remainder of the fiscal year, and thus the declines will continue in COVID-impacted revenues such as alcohol-related revenue, municipal court revenues, and hotel motel. And property tax will be largely unaffected by COVID. So as of the second quarter, the clear and present risks to this year's general fund revenues continue to reside in alcohol and beverage-related categories, fines and penalties, hotel and motel categories, all of which are being impacted by COVID to a higher degree than we initially anticipated. That concludes the coverage on the revenue projection slide. Are there any additional questions on revenue before we transition to Mr. Bartley?
All right, colleagues, does anybody have questions for the finance team? All right, I don't think I see any hands up. All right, let's move to Mr. Bartley.
Okay, if you'll transition to slide number 10, we will hand it over to Mr. Bartley and return thereafter.
Chair Ide, can you hear me?
I can.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to members of the committee. This is Matthew Bartley with the Mayor's Office. I'll be speaking briefly to slide 10 and then slide 11. So let's start at slide 10 and wanted to give you all a brief overview of the American Rescue Plan that has been finalized by the House today, specifically the allocation for state and local, and what that might mean for Atlanta. And so, again, this plan has just cleared the House, I think about an hour ago, and so this will now travel to President Biden to sign into law later this week. Before I jump in, let me say this slide was put together based on the bill that came out of the House. There have been some tweaks in the Senate through their deliberations, and so some of those tweaks, for example, may adjust the final amount we receive plus or minus. It may mean we receive money in a couple of tranches. I've heard that rather than in one go. And we can also anticipate that US Treasury will put together some guidelines that will offer more insight for cities on how the funding can be programmed. And so once we've had a chance to digest the final package and confirm the full implications for Atlanta, we'll make sure that that information is put together and shared with the council. But for today and in the context of this Q2 projection, I think the outline we have up here on the slide is still directionally accurate and very much worth touching on. So with that said, I'll just call out a few key points. Number one, as I mentioned, we don't have a definitive final number on the allocation yet, but we think the 165 we have listed here is a good working number for right now. That's based on some guidance that we received from the U.S. Conference of Mayors, but we will await the details on the final allocation. Obviously, something in this ballpark is a very substantial level of support. Number two, we expect the funding to come from U.S. Treasury in a relatively timely manner. As I say, it may be that the total number is allocated across several tranches, in which case we would expect a relatively quick push on the first of several allocations. And so obviously that would be a helpful thing for us. And number three, we understand the funding will have relatively broad eligibility in terms of being able to replace or supplement revenues that have been lost or decreased due to the pandemic, several of which Tina just touched on in the prior slide. And we will obviously drill down on the guidance that comes down on that from U.S. Treasury. So all of these indicators, they point to a level of support that will enable us to continue running the city and delivering services to our residents at current levels. Before we jump ahead, I will just ask at this point if either the CFO or the COO, whether they want to add or layer on to any of my comments on this page. And if not, we can move on to the next slide.
You've covered it, Matt.
Okay. Thank you, Roosevelt. Let's jump to slide 11, please. So on this page, this is an update of the same slide that we shared with council during our Q1 finance briefing. The updates here reflect the newer Q2 revenue and expense projections, but also we've included here the revised FEMA reimbursement numbers and an anticipation from the ARP that would balance our projected revenues with projected expenses. And so again, based on this approach, we remain in a position to move forward, maintaining current operations. Thanks, Finance. I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks, Matt. If we can move along to slide number 13, I'll give an overview on the enterprise fund. Beginning with aviation, their budget was $370 million, and year to date, their revenue is $166 million. They expect to continue to collect on that path to meet the anticipated revenue for the remainder of the year of 203.9 and meet that anticipated revenue number of $370 million. They have built into their projections last year a slow return of passenger travel, and so they are remaining pretty tightly to the revenue projections that they had built in and tracking along to that. On the expense side, they have spent year to date through December $143 million and anticipate another $214 million, ending the year at $356 with a $13 million savings, primarily driven by some parking operations and contracts that will deliver some savings on the expense side. In the Watershed Fund, their revenues were budgeted at $569 million. Year to date, they have received $297 million. They anticipate another $292 million, and ending the year in revenues at $588, which is surplus on the $19 million over what they had anticipated. And this is primarily driven by sales tax as well. They're seeing a similar higher than anticipated results in most. On the expense side, they have spent through December $282 million. Expect to the second half of the year to spend $227 million and end the year at $510 with a savings / reserves of $59 million, primarily reserves within the fund-wide reserves, bad debt, and GFA loan, and some savings in contracts. In the solid waste fund, their revenues were projected at $66 million. Year to date through December, they've received $38 million and anticipate another $28.6 for the remainder of the year, coming in very close to what the revenue was anticipated for the budget at $66.3. On the expense side, they have spent $30.5 million year to date through December. Expect to spend another $39 through the end of the year, and end the year at $69.8, which is about $3.5 million over budget on the expense side. And this is primarily due to some emergency procurement contracts for waste and debris removal and hazard pay. Any questions on the enterprise funds before we transition to debt and investments?
Colleagues, any questions? All right, let's go on, and again, we can give everybody an opportunity to ask questions at the end as well. Thanks.
Sure. Okay. All right, with that, we'll turn it over to Mr. Watson and pick up on slide 15.
I'm not hearing anybody. I'm getting a message that Mr. Watson's not on the line.
Okay. Can you hear me, Madam Chair?
I can hear you, Mr. Counsel, but I never heard Mr. Watson.
No, I didn't hear him either. Okay, so I can cover these next three slides.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So this slide actually represents the investment portfolio that the city has, which is mainly made up of our enterprise funds, which has a lot of bond funds that were involved with this. The challenge that we've had this year has been, the reduction in interest rates, which have actually decreased our yield, which actually represents the reason that we see a net decrease across all of the funds for the second quarter of the $220 million. And there's no sense at this point in time that the Fed are looking, to make any adjustments until they start to see the economy bounce back. But more than anything, most of the investors are actually, again, still clinging on to their cash, and they're just not dipping their toes into the market until things start to open back up. But once that actually starts to happen, then we feel certain that we'll start to see the positive repercussions of that, which we'll start to see larger yields being put into the market. Next slide. This slide represents our debt portfolio. And I think what's important here is the activity that we've been engaged in over the last 2 years. Because of the market being where it is, we've taken advantage of being able to refund, again, with Treasury rates being historically low. We've actually benefited from a lot of refunding that you guys have been a part of approving. And we've been able to save and reduce our outstanding debt over those 2 years across all funds by $380 million, which is something that we probably don't expect to see again unless we have another catastrophe like the one that we're under now. So, and we still expect to keep moving toward that direction with some additional refundings that we have planned for this fiscal year and try to get those favorable rates before they start to pick back up. And the next slide is the last slide. This is where this is the city's credit rating, which has been holding pretty strong. The only hiccup that we've actually had, I believe, was some concerns with the rating agencies about the customer facility charges, which is the rental car revenue at the airport, but they did not reduce it. They actually held it stable. I think it's because they're starting to see that traffic is starting to pick back up at the airport, and because of the institutional impact that Hartsville Jackson has always had. In our meeting with a couple of the rating agencies, they feel very strongly that the city has been able to manage this pandemic financially in such a way where they're not too concerned. And I think one of the most important aspects of that in talking to one of them has been our diversity in the kind of revenue that we generate. We only have, one particular line item, which is property tax, that makes up about 32%, and that's the largest. So we have a very diverse sources of revenues, and that is proved to be pretty positive for us. And so we feel that our standards will still remain, but they are conscious of some of those revenues that have been impacted, which again is the rental car as well as hotel motel. But because of the structure that we have for those facilities that are funded by those revenues, we feel that by the time that the economy rolls back up, we'll still be in pretty good shape. And Madam Chair, I think that is the end of the presentation.
All right, thank you so much. Colleagues, I know that was a lot. Does anybody have questions about any of this, of where we stand halfway through this year? Well, I don't see anybody raising their hand, so I'm going to assume that people are mulling this over and they can reach out to Mr. Counsel offline if people have questions that come up after they digest this thorough presentation.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Thank you all, and apologies for the technical issues. I'm not quite sure what was going on today. All right. Well, that is the end of our presentations and status reports, which is going to take us to our ordinances for first read, which we have 11 today. So I'm going to ask Ms. Kempson-Wright if she would please read those 11 items in for us.
Yes, Madam Chair.
0159,
an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or her designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to execute all appropriate documents that would grant a utility easement across the real property known as 2353 Metropolitan Parkway, Atlanta, land lots 91, 102, District 14 of Fulton County, Georgia, to Georgia Power Company for the purpose of installing underground power distribution facilities, waiving real estate and procurement code Article 10, Subdivision 3, Sections 21571, 21572, and 21574 of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances. Item number 2 is 21-00160, an ordinance authorizing the mayor or her designee to execute amendment number 6 for FC 5597, citywide elevator and escalator services with Bison Crux Elevator Corporation on behalf of the Department of Enterprise Asset Management, Atlanta Police Department, Department of Aviation, Department of Corrections, Department of Parks and Recreation, Department of Public Works, and Department of Watershed Management to extend the term of the agreement on a month-to-month basis for a period up to 7 months beginning April 8, 2021 through October 31st, 2021, and to add sites located at 160 Trinity Avenue and 2353 Metropolitan Parkway, Atlanta Police Department, Zone 3 to the scope of services in an amount not to exceed $524,340.00 in accordance with Section 21163, subsection C of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances. All contractor work to be charged to and paid from funding numbers listed herein. Item number 3 is 21-00161, an ordinance authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to amend the fiscal year 2021 budget by transferring to and from appropriations the amount of $107,531.00 to adequately fund the high-density filing system installation and floor support project for the Department of Law and for other purposes. Item number 4 is 21-00162, an ordinance to amend Ordinance 20-01612 adopted by the Atlanta City Council on October 19, 2020, and approved by operational law per City Charter Section 2403 on October 28, 2020, authorizing the mayor or her designee to extend the term of agreement FC 9275A, City of Atlanta Wellness Center on behalf of PHR with HealthStat Incorporated, and FC 9275B, City of Atlanta Wellness Center on behalf of DHR with Kaiser Foundation Health Plan of Georgia Incorporated to include the correct initial term of the agreement and to authorize funding in an amount not to exceed $2,500,000.00. Item number 5 is 21-00163, an ordinance authorizing the mayor or her designee to enter into a third amendment to lease agreement with Chester Avenue Loft LLC, a Georgia limited liability company for approximately 3,500 square feet of office space located at 890 Memorial Drive Southeast, Suite 006, Atlanta, Georgia 30316 for the Atlanta Police Department, Path 4 Unit Mini Precinct to provide alternate parking, waiving Section 21546 of the Procurement Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances, Article 10. Item number 6, 21-00164, an ordinance to ratify services rendered in connection with agreement FC 6120, citywide janitorial services with American Facility Service Incorporated, beginning January 1st, 2021, and to authorize the mayor or her designee to execute a 7th amendment to extend the term of the agreement on a month-to-month basis for a period up to 10 months, retroactively effective January 1st, 2021 through October 30th, 2021, to add the Department of Public Works and additional sites to the agreement, and to add funds to the agreement on behalf of the Department of Enterprise Asset Management, Department of Watershed Management, Department of Parks and Recreation, the Atlanta Police Department, the Department of Human Resources, and the Department of Public Works, an amount not to exceed $1,715,304.00 in accordance with Section 21163 of Article 10, Procurement and Real Estate Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances. All contractor work to be charged to and paid from account numbers listed. Item number 7 is 21-00165, an ordinance authorizing the mayor or her designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to execute a lease agreement with APF Support Incorporated for the lease of property located at 69 Mason Avenue, Atlanta, Georgia 30307, DeKalb County parcels listed, and the contiguous property located at 1504 Hardy Street, Atlanta, Georgia 30307, DeKalb County parcel numbers listed, consisting of one building and an adjoining vacant lot for use as a Zone 6 mini precinct for a 3-year term commencing on April 1st, 2021,
and ending on March 31st, 2024, authorizing a rental rate of $1 for the term of the lease agreement, authorizing expenditure to be charged to and paid from the accounts listed. Item number 8 is 21-00166, an ordinance authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to amend the fiscal year 2021 general fund budget to create additional department organization numbers within the Oracle financial system for the Department of Enterprise Asset Management. Item number 9 is 21-00167, an ordinance authorizing the mayor or her designee to execute special procurement agreement STS 1210228, annual contract for the disposal of treatment waste with Georgia Waste Systems Incorporated, doing business as Waste Management of Atlanta, pursuant to sections 21191.1 of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management for a term of 3 years with 2 one-year renewal options effective March 1st, 2021, and an amount not to exceed $4,150,000.00. All contracted work to be charged and paid from the fund, organization, and account numbers listed. Item number 10 is 21-00168, an ordinance authorizing the mayor on behalf of the City of Atlanta to execute all documents necessary for the additional acquisition of certain property interests necessary for the Moores Mill Road and Howell Mill Road intersection improvement project, authorizing negotiations with property owners for the acquisition of such property interests, authorizing title searches, appraisals, surveys, and any other items necessary for the acquisition of such property interests, authorizing the mayor and the city attorney, in the event negotiations are unsuccessful, to institute condemnation proceedings pursuant to the declaration of taking method, Official Code of Georgia 3231, waiving certain provisions of Article 10 Real Estate and Procurement Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances, all contracted work and payments for property interests to be paid from account numbers listed herein. And item number 11 is 21-00169, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee to authorize the Chief Financial Officer to amend the fiscal year 2021 Intergovernmental Grant Fund and Trust Fund by transferring appropriations from the Department of City Planning and adding appropriations to the Department of Transportation in an amount not to exceed $16,831,291.09, and authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to transfer the department organizations and accounts as listed herein in connection to the Department of Transportation and for other purposes.
All right. Thank you very, very much. So all of those items will run their course and will come back to us 2 weeks from now. This takes us to our regular agenda, Section I, Ordinances for Second Read. Item number 12 is 21-00099, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer on behalf of the City of Atlanta to create a consolidated trust fund, which will combine the tennis center's trust accounts as indicated herein and for other purposes. This was an item that we had 2 weeks ago that went to full council, and then there were some questions that hadn't gotten answered, so they came back. We referred this item back to committee last week. I don't know, Mr. Matsakite, did you get your questions answered to your satisfaction? Mr. Matsakite?
Sorry about that. I did get some information from Commissioner Dargle, and I don't know if he's on the phone or not, regarding the maintenance that had been done at the parks recently, and then what is left to be done. Mr. Dargle, are you on the line? Would you care to speak?
Mr. Dargle, are you there? Commissioner Dargle? Not sure what's going on with our people being able to get on the line today. Commissioner Dargle or anybody from Parks?
Madam Chair, we currently don't have him on the presentation conference bridge.
Okay, I just got a note from the administration that they are reaching out to him. Let's give him 1 second.
Madam Chair, while we're waiting on
Hold on 1 second. Let me see. I'm getting a call from the Okay, I have been told that he is trying to get on the line right now, but Mr. Mascott, did you have something else to add?
Yeah, I guess my concern was that there are projects that are currently in line to be done, and some maintenance that needs to happen at these tennis centers, and that occur before this legislation take effect. So maybe we can have Commissioner Dargle speak to that.
Okay.
It happened at these tennis centers, and that occur before this legislation take effect. So
This is John Dargle, Commissioner of Parks and Recreation.
Okay, we can hear you now. We are talking about the Tennis Center Trust Fund paper, and I think Mr. Matsakite wanted to just follow up on the questions that he had had on that paper.
Yeah, and I can ask a question again, Commissioner Dargle.
Okay.
And you had provided some information. My concerns were around some of the repairs that needed to be made that we've identified at each one of the tennis centers, that those repairs be made and have that work completed before this legislation goes into effect.
Right. Thank you, Councilmember Mazikite and Chairwoman Ide. Those projects are already in the queue or are being spec'd out now. We should be able to get the estimates quickly. Funds have already been set for the clay courts as well at Bitsy, so we're on the right road to making those repairs and improvements at Bitsy, and then consolidating these funds will give us a lot more flexibility in doing some of the higher priority projects like replacing the roof over at Washington Park as an example, and bundling some of the scope of work for painting and deep cleaning.
All right, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve.
Okay. I'm happy to second that, so let's open the vote.
Vote is open.
And I believe Councilmember Shepherd had to step away, so you could mark her as away.
Dickens is a yay. I'm just rebooting my computer.
The vote is closed.
All right, that is 6 yeses, 0 no's, so that item is favorable. Next item is item number 13-21-0-0121, an ordinance of Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or designee to exercise renewal option number 1, Special Procurement FC 9471, advertisements placed in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution in accordance with Charter Section 36-35-3 on behalf of the Atlanta City Council and Administration in an amount not to exceed $99,000 annually to ratify services rendered in connection with the agreement beginning February 3rd, 2021, in accordance with Section 2-1163, subsection C of Article 10, Procurement and Real Estate Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances. All contract work will be charged and paid from accounts listed herein and for other purposes. And this contract is for when we have to publish legal notices in the Journal-Constitution in compliance with our city charters. I will make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right. Let's open the vote.
The vote is open.
All right, this item is favorable, 6 yeses, 0 noes. Next item is 14-21-0-0122, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or designee in accordance with Section 2-1163C, Article 10, Procurement and Real Estate Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances to ratify cooperative purchasing agreement FC 9726 wireless communication devices and voice and data services with Verizon Wireless Services LLC on behalf of the Department of Atlanta Information Management and exercise renewal number 2 for a term of 1 year effective retroactively from January 31st, 2021 through January 30th, 2022, an amount not to exceed $3,435,042.25. All contract work to be charged to and paid from funding numbers listed herein and for other purposes. There is a substitute in our packet for this. Give me 1 second. I'll tell you what it does.
Motion to bring the substitute forward.
Perfect. I'll second that. Let's open the vote on bringing it forward.
The vote is open.
Ms. Kempson-Wright, what does the substitute do?
Madam Chair, it updates the funding accounts and amounts for various departments.
Okay. I appreciate that. All right, that is favorable, 6 yeses, 0 noes. The substitute is now before us. I'll make a motion to approve. Okay, Shook motion. I'll second that. Let's open the vote.
Vote is open.
This item is favorable, 6 yeses, 0 noes. The next item is 15-21-0-0134, an ordinance by Councilmember Carla Smith authorizing the mayor or designee to execute cooperative purchasing agreement CPS 1210242 Everbridge Mass Notification and Emergency Alert System with Everbridge Inc. utilizing General Services Administration contract number GF 35F0692P for an initial term retroactively effective beginning November 1, 2020 to July 18, 2022 with 2 1-year renewal options in an amount not to exceed $136,670 for the purchase of Everbridge Aware Incident Notification Solution and maintenance and support on behalf of the Department of Atlanta Information Management, the Department of Customer Service, the Atlanta Police Department, and the Department of Aviation, and to ratify services rendered by Everbridge Inc. beginning November 1, 2020 in accordance with Section 2-1163, subsection C, Article 10 of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances. All contracted work to be charged to and paid from the account numbers listed herein, subject to and expressly contingent upon the adoption and approval of the fiscal year 2021 budget and for other purposes. And I believe we have an amendment in our packet that amends the legislation to update it to say not the fiscal year 2021, but fiscal year 2022, where it has the availability of funds language. So I will make a motion to amend first. Check it. Let's vote on the amendment.
The vote is open.
And Mr. Shook, I see you have your hand raised.
Well, I'll wait for okay, so amendment's been approved. Thank you.
The amendment has been approved, 6 yeses, 0 no's.
All right, thank you. And I do have just one question in terms of kind of the scope and what's allowed and, what's defined as allowable in terms of contract, in terms of content. I'll just ask my question in the form of just kind of one example. If I wanted to send out a message to my constituents or the entire city saying, hey, I'm Councilmember Howard Shook, and I just wanted to let you know that it's my birthday, can I do that?
Councilmember Shook, this is Councilmember Smith. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'll tell you what I'm going to do with this is actually, Everbridge is for emergencies. We also have, we have AIM with us today. We have the airport and 311. But Everbridge is really for emergencies. And so we don't want to water Everbridge and its emergency notifications down by adding your birthday on there, although I do believe that that's probably one of the most important days of the year. But we don't want to numb people, because if there's a true fire or something's going on at the airport or something that is truly an emergency, like a weather alert, then, but we will have AIM do, it probably won't be in the contracts, but we'll have AIM do an MOU with the company to make sure that, and we do think your birthday is important, but we're going to make sure that you will not be able to let everyone know on our emergency alert system of Everbridge.
All right, Ms. Smith, thank you for the clarification, and based on that, I will move approval as amended.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Shook. I'm happy to second that. Let's open the vote.
The vote is open.
This item is favorable as amended, 6 yeses, 0 no's. The next item is 16-21-00135, and still, all right, sorry. An ordinance by Councilmember Carla Smith in accordance with Section 2-1602, 2-1604, 2-1606, and 2-1608 of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances to execute cooperative purchasing agreement CPS 121-0239 Kronos Workforce Management Systems with Kronos Incorporated to purchase Kronos hardware and software maintenance and support services for the City of Atlanta's time and attendance system and telestaff upgrade SaaS for a term not to exceed 1 year retroactively, effective July 29, 2020 to July 28, 2021, with 2 one-year renewal term options, and ratify services rendered on behalf of the Department of Atlanta Information Management and Atlanta Fire and Rescue Department in an amount not to exceed $428,936.80, all contracted work to be charged to and paid from funding numbers listed herein, subject to and expressly contingent upon the adoption and approval of the fiscal year 2021 budget and for other purposes. There is an amendment to this one, which fixes the same issue as the previous paper, that it needs to say the fiscal year 2022 budget, not 2021. So I will make a motion to make that amendment.
Second.
Up there. Okay. Yep. Let's vote on that first.
The vote is open.
The vote. All right, the amendment was favorable, 6 yeses, 0 no's. Ms. Kempson-Wright, do we also need to do a second amendment to put the co-op authorization memo on?
No, Madam Chair.
No,
the amendment form actually updates the fiscal year and adds the DOP co-op memo. So you're okay.
Okay, so we just did that. All right. Then I will make a motion to approve as amended.
Second.
Let's open the vote.
Vote is open.
Right, this item is favorable as amended, 6 yeses, 0 noes. Next item is 17, which is 21-0-0140, an ordinance by Councilmember Andrea L. Boone authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to amend the fiscal year 2021 Capital Asset Finance Fund budget by adding to anticipations and appropriations in the amount of $7,760,000 to be used for the acquisition of equipment for the Department of Atlanta Information Management, Department of Human Resources, Atlanta Department of Transportation, Department of Parks and Recreation, Atlanta Police Department, Atlanta Fire Rescue Department, Department of Finance, Department of Enterprise Asset Management, and the Office of the Mayor pursuant to the 2008 Master Lease and Option Agreement between the City of Atlanta and the Georgia Municipal Association, Inc., GMA, and for other purposes. And once again, I believe this item has an amendment that is going to just update the funding allocations and accounts in the second resolve clause. So I'll make a motion to amend.
I also support that.
All right. So let's vote on the amendment now.
Vote is open.
All right, the amendment passed, 6 yeses, 0 noes. And I will make a motion to approve as amended.
Ditto.
Let's open the vote.
Vote is open.
All right, this item is favorable as amended with 6 yeses, 0 noes. Next item is 18 that I'm going to take together with 19 and 20 as they are all council member funded papers. So 18 is 21-0-0146, an ordinance by Councilmember Antonio Brown authorizing the transfer of $30,000 from the Council District 3 carry forward account to the Council District 3 distribution account to continue serving the Atlanta community for the public good and for other purposes. 19 is 21-0-0147, an ordinance by Councilmember Andrea L. Boone and Cleta Winslow authorizing the transfer of $30,000 from the Council District 4 carry forward account to the Council District 4 expense account and for other purposes. And item number 20 is 21-0-0148, an ordinance by Councilmember J.P. Messick authorizing the donation the amount not to exceed $10,000 from the Council District 8 carry forward account to the Atlanta Police Foundation for Operation Shield to assist the Ardmore Park project with the purchase of a license plate reader camera and a PTZ quad camera and for other purposes. So I will make a motion to approve those 3 items.
Second, the second Shook.
Yeah.
All right, let's open the vote.
The vote is open.
Those 3 items are favorable with 6 yeses and 0 noes. That is the end of our ordinances on our regular agenda, which takes us to Section J, our resolutions. Item number 21 is 21R3210, a resolution by Councilmember J.P. Messick authorizing the mayor or her designee to exercise renewal number 2 for FC 9112 external financial audit services with KPMG LLP on behalf of the Office of the City Auditor for a term of 1 year effective August 15, 2021 through August 14, 2022, an amount not to exceed $1,699,050.94. All contracted work shall be charged to and paid from funds, department, organization, and accounts listed herein and for other purposes. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, let's open the vote.
The vote is open.
This item is favorable, 6 yeses, 0 noes. Next item is 22, which is 21R3211, a resolution by Councilmember Jennifer and I, authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to refund customers for overpayments to water and sewer accounts in an amount of blank. All funds to be charged to and paid from Fund Department Organization and account numbers 5051 00001 122 6009, and for other purposes. This item needs to be held until we're ready for it, so that's the motion that I will make.
Second.
All right, let's open the vote.
The vote is open.
Six yeses, 0 noes. This item will remain held in committee. Item number 24 is 21R 3256, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to enter into contract renewal option number 3 with Career Builder, Inc., FC 10215, Employment Opportunities Job Board Services on behalf of the Department of Human Resources in an amount not to exceed $93,000. All contracted work to be charged to and paid from funding numbers listed herein and for other purposes. This item also has a substitute, and let's open the vote to bring the substitute forward. I'll make a motion to bring the substitute forward.
Well, I'm going to second that.
Okay, let's open the vote on that.
The vote is open.
All right, that was 6 yeses, 0 noes. Ms. Kempton-Wright, can you just remind me what the substitute does on this one?
Yes, the substitute adds the previous amendments and the renewal terms to the preamble, the body of the legislation.
Okay. I will make a motion to approve on substitute.
Second.
All right, let's open the vote.
The vote is open.
All right, that was 6 yeses, 0 noes, favorable on substitute, and I have just been reminded that I actually skipped an item, so we need to go back to item number 23, which is 21R 3255, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer pursuant to the provisions of OCGA Section 485380 to issue a refund in the amount of $240,244.64 to Technology Square LLC for reimbursement of certain property taxes paid in the tax year 2017. All funds to be charged to and paid from the Fund Department Organization account numbers listed herein and for other purposes. And this one, it looks like there was actually a court ruling that these parcels were exempt from taxation, and that's what the refund is about. The law department's available if anybody has any questions, but I will make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, let's open the vote.
The vote is open.
This item's favorable, 6 yeses, 0 noes. Let's see. Then, so 24 we did. Ms. Kempton-Wright, did I do 25 or is that what we're on now?
We're now on 25.
Okay. 21R 3257, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or designee to execute amendment number 4 for agreements FC 8741A, miscellaneous repair and construction services under $250K for ADA and other improvements with Soco Contracting Company FC 8741B, miscellaneous repair and construction services under $250K $250K for ADA and other improvements with Ask Construction Company and Home Inspection LLC, SC 8741C. Miscellaneous repair and construction services under $250K for ADA and other improvements with Lichty Commercial Construction, Inc. on behalf of the Department of Enterprise Asset Management to add funding for City Council Districts 10, 11, and 12 in an amount not to exceed $700,000 and to add funding to the Joint Task Order Fund for the Department of Parks and Recreation in an amount not to exceed $2 million for a total amount not to exceed $2,700,000. All contracted work will be charged and paid from accounts listed herein and for other purposes. And I'm going to ask Mr. Davis from Dean to just tell us a little bit more about this paper because I'm not, don't know the background of it.
Okay, good afternoon, Council Chair and members of the Council. Basically, all we're trying to do is for some of the continuation of the work that we're doing with the Renew project, we're just adding authorization to spend with the contractors on the existing contract for the work that's still associated with the different districts. Some of those include some park upgrades, some of those include some fire stations upgrades. It's just putting authority on the contract that exists to be able to spend. That's for
okay.
Yeah. So that's for the deemed aspect. And what Parks is doing is that they have money already on the account. They just want to extend the account for some continuation of some other work that they're doing on the park side.
Okay. Are these local district fund dollars or are these city projects?
Oh, these are local district fund dollars with the spots. These are from the Renew program.
Okay, so it's not additional funding. It's just putting the funding on these contracts.
Exactly. It's just adding authorization.
Okay. I got you. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, let's open the vote.
The vote is open.
All right, this item is favorable as amended. Oh, no, not amended. This is item's just favorable. 6 yeses, 0 noes. All right, now we come down to our dual referred items in section K. Item number 26 is 21-0-0139, an ordinance by Councilmember Andrea L. Boone amending the fiscal year 2021 CARES Act 2508 fund budget by adding to anticipations and appropriations the proceeds of the U.S. Treasury Emergency Rental Assistance Grant Agreement in the amount of $15,255,435.20 for the 2021 Emergency Rental Assistance Program, the 2021 ERA grant, and for other purposes. And Mr. Westmoreland, what happened in CD on this?
It came out favorably, unanimously. We had a brief presentation from the administration and United Way, with whom we will be partnering again, about lessons learned from our first $22 million of CARES Act funding as we work to distribute this $15.2 million between now and the end of the calendar year.
And everybody felt assured that we were going to be able to do that efficiently?
Yeah, the highlights were, we had half as much time to disperse more money the last time around, and we partnered with 24 service providers, and so we are going to shrink that list and have learned a lot. And 7 out of 7 folks on the committee felt good about the direction that we're heading in.
Okay, great.
I'll give you a motion to approve if you want one.
Perfect. All right. Thank you.
Second.
I'm happy to second. Okay. Was that, who was that?
I have no idea.
Was that Dickens or was that Matsakite?
Shook.
It was
Shook.
Shook.
Okay, we'll go with Shook. All right, let's open the vote.
The vote is open.
All right, this item is favorable, 6 yeses, 0 noes. Okay, that was 26. 27, I believe, stayed in PSLA. 28 is 21-0-0-4-8. An ordinance by council members Dustin Hillis, Carla Smith, Nat Westmoreland, Joyce Shepard, Michael Julian Bond, and Cleta Winslow as substituted and amended by Community Development Human Services Committee authorizing the City of Atlanta, the Atlanta Development Authority doing business as Invest Atlanta, the Authority, and the Atlanta Urban Redevelopment Agency, AURA, to proceed with the implementation of the Atlanta Beltline Trail Corridor Completion Project, the project, within the boundaries of the Atlanta Beltline Special Services District, the SSD, providing for definitions, authorizing and approving the financing of the project by the authority and or AURA and any necessary or appropriate public projects ancillary thereto as part of the implementation of the city's redevelopment plan and urban redevelopment plan as amended. Each is previously approved by the city, authorizing the preparation, use, and distribution, as the case may be, of an intergovernmental agreement between and among the city, the authority, and or AURA, as reviewed and approved by the Atlanta Beltline, Inc., ABI, among other documents and agreements in connection therewith, providing for, in connection therewith, providing for parameters for said financing and for other related matters, providing for severability and providing for other purposes. This is one of the SSD papers, and our other SSD paper is going to be all the way down at 47, I believe, and I think we have a presentation on these, and I'm just going to state for the record, I'm going to be abstaining on all of the papers related to the SSD because I am a commercial property owner that would be impacted by the papers. So I'm not going to be voting on these, but let's go ahead and hear the presentation on the SSD papers.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. This is Clyde Higgs with Atlanta Beltline, Inc. We are going to give you a brief summary of the SSD. And so if you do not mind, please advance to the second slide that says Special Service District Overview. And again, just by way of background, this is the basic facts on the proposed Special Service District. We believe that we can complete the Beltline in a very equitable manner. And specifically, the use of these funds would be used for the construction, design, acquisition of mainline Beltline Trail. We think we will be able to generate or support a $100 million bond off of a $2 million increase. And the specific area that we're making reference to is within the Beltline planning area. And so you may remember, and please let's go to the next slide that says Pathways to Growth in Communities. So you may remember in an earlier conversation that we had, we promised that we would go out to the community at least 6 times to talk about the moving pieces of this proposed district, the SSD. And many of the positive things that we heard from community in the 11, 12 public meetings that we've had over the last 30 to 45 days really got good information and feedback on the Beltline as a proven asset. I think the community feels that the Beltline has been proven from a job creation perspective with economic development following the Beltline investment specifically, a way to catalyze housing along the Beltline corridor that ultimately provides affordable options for our residents. And also adding to the inventory of linear green space within the city of Atlanta, and then also providing a safe route to our schools that touch the Beltline. And then lastly, obviously generating additional revenue from the TAD. we are tracking over $6 billion of private investment along the Beltline corridor to date. And then what we heard from a concern perspective was that this SSD didn't necessarily take in to account light rail transit within the SSD thought process, and also just the timing of trail construction. There was obviously lots of comments about making sure that we are able to advance the entire belt line, within this 2030 period, which is the sunset time for the Beltline TAD. And then we heard input about transparency and accountability, and also the opportunity for citizens to have significant insight and input over the SSD funds. And then the last piece of concern or feedback, as I like to describe it, was making sure that as we talk about opportunities on the affordable housing side and opportunities on the small business side, that we really consider a bigger chunk of those funds from the Beltline TAD and other sources to support small businesses in a more significant way. And so that is just a summary of what we heard. I want to introduce my partner, Rob Bronner, the Executive Director for the Atlanta Beltline Partnership, to talk a little bit about the property or the district boundaries.
Thank you, Clyde, and thank you, members of council. If you can advance to the next slide, please, on the district boundaries. Just for clarity, the intent of this district is to include properties who stand to experience a commercial upside from the Beltline's completion, and that's namely the commercial, industrial, and multifamily properties within the Beltline planning area. And just as a reminder to council, the Beltline planning area is the area where Atlanta Beltline Inc. has completed master plans that inform the growth and development that happens around the Beltline, and those master plans have been adopted by council into the city's comprehensive development plan. You can go to the next slide, just a summary of the taxable properties within the district. There are a little bit over 3,500 taxable properties within the district that have an assessed value of approximately $3.1 billion. The majority of the properties in the district are commercial, although the majority of the value is in the apartments. And then if you go to the next slide, we look from an equity standpoint in terms of who would be bearing how much of the cost and the investment through the district. And so this next slide shows the potential financial impact of the SSD assessment at 2 mills.
And spending amount, I had to speak to that, but
I'm sorry, can you all hear me?
Yeah, somebody doesn't have their phone on mute with the administration. If you can do that so we can hear from the Beltline, that'd be great.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the potential financial impact here, looking at 2 mills, I know there were some public comments that referenced the AJC ad of up to 2.5 mills. Just for clarity, that amount was used in an abundance of caution as we awaited updated information from Fulton County about appeals, as well as updates from City Finance on bond projections reflecting the current market. We are pleased to share that these projections came in at right about 2 mills. So at that level of SSD assessment, when you look at how much would be contributed by each parcel within the district of the taxable properties, about half, about 48%, would be contributing $250 or less. About over 80% would be contributing $1,000 or less per year. And so from a equity standpoint, those who have experienced the greatest commercial upside will also be contributing the most to the district. If you go to the next slide, we thought it would be helpful to give a sense of some real properties within the district. On the commercial side, there's obviously a range where larger properties are paying more and smaller businesses pay less. From a timing standpoint, just for clarity, the assessment would appear on bills later this fall. So if approved, it would be on the tax bills that go out in the fall when the property owner would need to pay. And then depending on the lease agreements between the property owner and the tenants, for tenants who rent, the true-up process would follow the property owner's payment of the bill. And in many cases, I mean, I can speak personally for us as a tenant on the Beltline, that true-up would happen in the first quarter of 2022. So for some businesses who lease, it could be about a year from now for that financial impact to hit. For the property owners directly themselves, it would be in the fall, towards the end of the year, when the property tax bills come due. You can go to the next slide on the apartment side, the multifamily side. There is a big difference between luxury Class A properties and those that are naturally occurring or subsidized, naturally occurring affordable or subsidized affordable. We definitely wanted to be mindful of the impact on housing. Although, as a reminder, there is no requirement that the apartment property owners pass the SSD assessment through to renters. They could certainly see it as an investment of their profits. But it is important to note that even if it were passed through, the impact per unit is far less on affordable developments than on luxury Class A apartments. So as I moved kind of quickly, but wanted to give you an overview of the assessment itself, and we'll turn it back over to Clyde to talk a little bit about the budget and expenditures.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate that. And so just advancing to the next slide. And so this is just a quick snapshot on the expenditure. So you can see the pie chart at the top left, which just gives you a breakdown on how we plan on spending the funds for completing the trail. Over 70% of those dollars being used specifically for construction, and almost 20% of the proposed dollars going to real estate right-of-way acquisition, and then smaller parts for utility relocation, and about 3% for engineering, specific engineering services. And then on the right side, you can see the pie chart, just a breakout of where those buckets would be advanced. And obviously, on the northwest side would receive the majority of the funds, just because we have not been very active on the northwestern segment throughout the Beltline history. So spending about 36% on what we describe as the northwest trail, and then about 31% on the northeast, 22% on the south side trail. We are active there right now. Just as an aside, we hope to open the south side trail west segment the summer of this year, and then 11% on the west side trail. So this is a quick snapshot of the proposed SSD. Again, we really appreciate the opportunity to share this, Madam Chair and members of the Finance Exec Committee. We have heard a number of significant and good comments from the community over our 11, 12 community meetings. So thank you for the time.
Thank you. And Mr. Westmoreland had said he could just tell us a little bit what happened in CD with this paper.
Sure. Thanks, Madam Chair. A couple of things. So there, as Rob and Clyde just mentioned, there are actually three pieces of legislation that relate to this proposal. One was just referred to CDHS, and came out of committee 6-0 with one abstention yesterday and has headed to full council. We did a couple of amendments to that paper just for context. Councilmember Hillis and Faroki offered an amendment based on feedback that we received from a couple of CIDs and a business association around kind of putting into writing the ways that Atlanta Beltline Inc. and Atlanta Beltline Partnership should and can partner with those organizations around the city more in the future. Also shifting some of the more dollars towards small business support. There was originally $7 million allocated to that, and we shifted the same amount of money, but we shifted that up to $12 million based on feedback that we received, and then created a stakeholder advisory committee that is going to include commercial owners, multifamily owners, commercial tenants, and multifamily tenants. And then finally had a request from 3 different CIDs to have the city auditor look at SSD every other year, which was also part of that amendment. And then Councilmember Hillis offered a second amendment to tighten up the language around what these funds can be spent on to be as explicit as humanly possible around focusing on acquisition, construction, design and construction of the 22-mile loop. So this paper also came out of CDHS, 5 yeses, 0 nos, 1 abstention, with a similar amendment around tightening up the language. And I will make a motion whenever you're ready for one to approve.
All right. Any other speakers? Any questions for the Beltline folks while we have them here? All right. Anybody, because I'm abstaining, anybody want to second Mr. Westmoreland's motion? There's got to be somebody.
And I'm sorry, but the motion entails what?
Moving the paper to full council with a favorable recommendation. It is setting up an IGA between the City of Atlanta and Invest Atlanta, this particular paper.
Okay, so help me out. So there's 3 papers. One does not come to this committee, right? It goes straight to council, and the other 2?
Yeah, so the one that creates the SSD is headed to council. This one enters the City of Atlanta into an intergovernmental agreement with Invest Atlanta around the issuance of bonds. And there is a paper that is held in this committee solely that relates to the millage rate.
Okay, and that's not on the table today?
It is on the table today.
We're getting to it.
Coming up later.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's way down, I think, item 45, something like that.
Thank you.
Well, we have a motion by Westmoreland. Councilmember Archibald would like to speak. Councilmember Archibald, are you there? We can't hear you. All right, she has disappeared.
Second, Dickens.
Now okay, second by Dickens. Okay, all right. We have a motion by Westmoreland, second by Dickens, and we'll hearing from Councilmember Archibald.
Yeah, am I unmuted now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
One of my least favorite questions. Can you hear me now? Okay. I was just saying that I voiced a number of my concerns yesterday at CDHS, and I will not belabor the point today. I'm continuing to get answers to questions that I posed, and so I will continue with abstaining today. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Well, then let's open the vote.
The vote is open.
All right. Well,
we're updating the final vote.
Okay. Okay, so this had 3 yeses, which were Westmoreland, Dickens, Matsakite, 1 no, which was Shook, and Ide and Archibald abstaining. I believe that is a favorable motion, but Ms. Kempson, right?
Madam Chair, you're correct.
Confirm. Okay.
Yes, you're correct. We were trying to update on our end with the system. It was just taking a minute. It is favorable.
Okay. All right. So go back to my page. So that was item 28 is favorable, 3 yeses, 1 no, 2 abstentions. Let me see what comes next of our items out of our dual referred items. 1 minute. It's a long agenda.
Madam Chair, I think there's supposed to be another paper related to the rental assistance.
Well, I'm looking. Is it okay? I have 47 and I have 49 and I have 51. Okay. I think it's down 52, Mr. Westmoreland. Is that the one you're looking for?
There you go.
Okay. Let me do the, let's keep going in the order right now, but that is the other one that came from your committee, I think.
I just want to make sure we got
okay. Yeah. Okay. So we're on 28. If you keep scrolling in your agendas, the next item that we are going to get to is 47, which is 21-00052, an ordinance by Councilmembers Justin Hillis, Carla Smith, Matt Westmoreland, Joyce M. Shepard, Michael Julian Bond, and Cleta Winslow to amend Section 146-26 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Atlanta so as to provide for an ad valorem tax levy on property located within the Beltline Special Services District and for other purposes. And in our packet, there is a substitute for this paper as well. Ms. Kempson, right, what does the substitute do?
Madam Chair, the administration, either the law department or someone from the finance department should be on the line to speak to the substitute. This is the one that establishes the tax levy for the special services district.
Okay. Can somebody from the law department or who is otherwise knowledgeable about what's different about the substitute provide us a little update on that? And it's 21-00052 is what we're talking about. We are not hearing anybody. Is anybody from law or the administration available to speak to 21-00052 as to the substitute?
Good afternoon. This is Ken Neighbors. Can you hear me?
Okay. Okay, go ahead, Ken.
Yep, we got you, Mr. Neighbors.
Good afternoon. This is Ken Neighbors at McGuire Woods. I'm joined by my co-counsel, Patrice Perkins Hooker of Johnson Freeman. Yes, the substitute version adds the exhaustive planning and legislative history behind the Atlanta Beltline, the urban redevelopment area, and as well as the planning area, and it also includes now the final recommended millage levy of 2 mills that previously was in brackets, and so that's a fairly good summary.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Neighbors. We appreciate it. Out of an abundance of caution, since I am abstaining due to our ethics code, I'm going to let somebody else make the motion to bring the substitute forward.
So moved.
All right. Do we have a second? That was
second.
Westmoreland motion, Dickens second. Let's open the vote on bringing forward the substitute.
The vote is open.
All right, that's 4 yeses, 1 no from Mr. Shook, and I abstained. The substitute is before us.
Move approval on substitute.
All right, motion by Westmoreland. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, second from Dickens. Let's open the vote.
Vote is open.
This is 3 yeses, 1 no from Shook, Ide and Archibong abstaining, and we need to fix that because that actually is a favorable motion. So this paper will move forward to full council. All right, that was 47. Let's go down to 49, which is a charter amendment, 21-00082, an ordinance by Councilmembers J.P. Matsakite, Howard Shook, Andre Dickens, Matt Westmoreland, Amir R. Faroki, and Justin Hillis, as substituted by Finance Executive Committee to amend Charter Subpart A, Article 6, Chapter 3, Section 6-315B, Subsection 3 of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances for the purpose of increasing the 3.5% appropriation of the City of Atlanta general budget for the public infrastructure maintenance and improvement account to 5% in order to ensure adequate annual dedicated capital account funding for routine maintenance, repair, and replacement of public infrastructure and for other purposes. This is a charter amendment, so it has to go through our 3 reads and through publication. There is an amendment that we need to bring forward that amends the legislation to add in the city's capital finance fund to Section 1 and the designated account as Section 3. That I will make a motion to amend.
Second.
All right, let's open the vote on the amendment.
The vote is open.
Mr. Shook, do you need to voice vote?
No, I was trying to be recognized to ask a question, so I'm not going to vote until I understand the nature of the amendment.
Okay, I didn't see your hand up.
No, I might have been muted. Sorry.
Okay. The amendment, my understanding, is in Section 1. It added in the language in the city's capital finance fund, which is on page 2 of that. And the other part was to add the account string in Section 3 is my understanding. I don't know, Ms. Kempson-Wright, is that your understanding? And we could have law speak to it as well.
Yes, Madam Chair. Finance provided that at the beginning of each fiscal year, the budget will be amended for 5% of the general budget. And they actually added the appropriations and anticipation account. So we wouldn't have to do additional legislation in the future. It's already there.
Okay, so they added those two blocks in of transfer to appropriations and add to anticipation.
Yes, they created the account for it.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Mr. Shook, or do you want to hear from finance?
It does. Thank you.
Okay. We had a motion by Ide and a second by Westmoreland. All right, 6 yeses, 0 noes on the amendment. I'll make a motion to approve as amended.
Second.
All right, let's open the vote.
The vote is open.
All right, this 6 yeses, 0 noes. This item is favorable as amended. So this is going to move forward to full council for, I believe it's first adoption, and then it will come back to us again. Is that correct?
Yes, Madam Chair, that's correct.
Okay, so we will see that paper again since it is a charter amendment. Item number 51 is 21R 3156. A resolution by Councilmember Jennifer and I, substituted by Finance Executive Committee, requesting that the mayor takes into consideration and funds priorities that the Atlanta City Council recommends being included in the fiscal year 2022 budget and for other purposes. We have substituted this once. I don't believe I have an amendment for any additional request on this, which of course we can do at the council meeting. So typically what we do on this is move it forward with no recommendations so that it can be finalized at the full council meeting. So that would be my motion.
Second.
All right, let's open the vote.
The vote is open.
So 6 yeses and 0 noes to move this paper with no recommendation. We do not have any walk-ins under section M. And I'll just say for my colleagues who may be listening, we did get a few of requests to add to that last paper, which we are keeping track of and will present on Monday when we vote on that paper. All right, section N is our papers referred from other committees, and as Mr. Westmoreland pointed out, I believe that item, whoops, was it, Mr. Westmoreland, tell me which one I said to, it's 52, right? Is that the one that came out of your committee yesterday? 21-0-0138. The ERA paper. Okay. All right. So 21-0-0138, an ordinance by Councilmember Andrea L. Boone is amended by Community Development Human Services Committee, authorizing the mayor, her designee, on behalf of the City of Atlanta to enter into Amendment Number 1 of Agreement EAS 1200569, COVID-19 Emergency Rental Assistance Program Administration Services Agreement with United Way of Greater Atlanta, Inc. on behalf of the executive offices to extend the term through December 31st, 2021, and to add funding for continued emergency rental assistance to residents of the City of Atlanta to be funded by the U.S. Department of Treasury Emergency Assistance ERA funds in an amount not to exceed $15,255,435.20 and for other purposes. So, Mr. Westmoreland, is this just this is the agreement with United Way for them to help us deliver the services that
It is.
we are going to provide?
The earlier paper accepted the money from the federal government, and this is the paper discussing how we're going to expend it. So they're companions, so to speak. But yes, this is the relationship with United Way that we are extending based on these new dollars.
Okay.
And I'll make the motion to approve.
All right, I'm happy to second that. Let's open the vote. All right, this item is favorable, 6 yeses, 0 noes. And I have been informed that we do have a walk-in. So let me get that in front of us. Ms. Kempson-Wright, do we have it in our email?
You do not, Madam Chair. I'm actually pulling it over to our ELM system now and doing the approvals that are required. If you'll give us one moment, maybe.
Okay.
Exactly. An email has just been sent to all committee members that may not have received it from the administration on Friday.
Okay. We didn't amend our agenda to accept this. Do we need to do that, or are we?
We will need to go back and reconsider the agenda to accept the walk-in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Madam Chair, in the meantime, can I make an announcement?
Absolutely.
Motion to hold.
I will say, let me see what it is, because this may have been an error on our side. I was asked last week about a walk-in. In fact, it was this one, and I believe, I don't want to blame Ms. Kempson-Wright, but I think it got stuck somewhere in her email. So I was aware of it. I think it got automatically filed somewhere else in Ms. Kempson-Wright's email, because I had asked her this morning about it, and she said she hadn't seen it. So I think this is our side issue, not a administration issue.
Substitute motion to approve.
Okay. Let's amend. I'm going to make a motion to amend our agenda to accept the walk-in.
Second.
What is the walk-in?
The walk-in is, it was just emailed to us. It is a resolution allowing the finance department to issue a task order to Deloitte under the cooperative purchasing agreement that's in place, to help do the revenue forecast update for this year, if you remember, we used Deloitte last year to help with the revenue forecast because of the impact of COVID on our economy. And so they want to do the same thing this year. And they did reach out to me last week. This was a miscommunication on the council side of it not getting on the agenda and me not saying something at the beginning of the meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's vote on the motion to reconsider the agenda to add the walk-in. Ms. Councilman, do we need to do two motions? Do we need to reconsider and then amend it, or can we do it in one motion?
There'll be two. You'll need to reconsider, and then the second would be the motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
Okay. Let's reconsider the agenda. I'll make that motion. I think Mr. Westmoreland seconded it, so let's open the vote on that. All right, that's 6 yeses, 0 no's to reconsider. I'm now going to make a motion to amend our agenda so that we can include, I don't have the eldest number, but it's the Deloitte task order legislation.
Second.
All right, let's vote on the motion to amend.
Is open.
All right, that's 6 yeses, 0 no's. So the agenda has been amended, and now to just complete all of our process, need to make a motion to adopt as amended.
Second.
Open the vote. All right, 6 yeses, 0 no's. So our agenda now includes the walk-in, which I'll read the caption. And now a resolution by Finance Executive Committee, authorizing the mayor or her designee to issue task order number 1 to Deloitte Consulting LLP under Cooperative Purchasing Agreement CPS 1210175, ATL Cloud Implementation and Post-Implementation Support Services for Revenue Forecast Update and 5-year plan support services on behalf of the Department of Finance in an amount not to exceed $170,000.00. All contracted work to be charged to and paid from accounts listed herein and for other purposes. And as I said to Mr. Shook, the Department of Finance retained Deloitte last year to help them with our revenue projections in light of the impact of COVID-19 on our revenue streams, and it was very helpful, and they would like to do that again. So that's what this paper does.
Yeah, no, thank you. Second.
All right, motion by I, second by Shook. Let's open the vote.
Vote is open.
This item is favorable. 6 yeses, 0 no's. So that is the end of our legislative items. We do need to have a public hearing now on the SDS millage rate. So I am going to, because I'm abstaining on all of those matters, I'm going to turn it over to my Vice Chair, Howard Shook, to conduct the public hearing.
All right, thank you. I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
second by Westmoreland. Let's open that vote.
Vote is open.
All right, there's one abstention, so we are now in the public hearing. And are we to get a presentation preceding the public comments?
Yes, Councilmember Shook, we are pulling it up right now.
Okay, well, is that different from what we heard earlier in the meeting, or the same thing?
Yes, sir, it is a different presentation.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Proceed. All right, Beltline, have you been muted? Are you ready to go?
All right. Good afternoon. It's Clyde Higgs. And just real quick, just from a summary perspective, this is the information about the proposed Beltline SSD. The use of funds would be used for the completion of mainline Beltline Trail that includes land acquisition, design, and construction. We are proposing a $2 million increase, specifically a $2 million increase that would support a $100 million bond, and the geographic district being proposed is within the Beltline planning area. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let's go to the public comment.
Hi, my name is Frances Shaw. I'm speaking on behalf of Kingsville Arts Center LLC, who owns approximately 55 parcels in Kingsville Condo, which is a total of 99 parcels. We cover half a mile streetfront property in West Marion Street Northwest and 12.5 acres of land. I want to explain why this needs to be a lower mill citywide tax delayed until 2022. Small businesses are currently still struggling in this pandemic. It's not over. Many businesses are hanging on by a thread. Landlords have taken rent reductions, but a significant majority of Georgians are not vaccinated. Your map for the Beltline includes multiple small businesses that they're still unable to open their doors to the public due to COVID-19. Here's a real-life example of your proposed tax. At the 2.5 mil listed in the agency, your tax will bill a small nonprofit art theater that has been closed for a whole year, all 12 months, with no patrons, $800 this September. Government assistance is still difficult to obtain, with theaters still unable to apply for the Save Our Stages Fund. It seems like the Beltline does not know what is happening in the real world for Atlanta small businesses. Another example is a catering company has been affected by the pandemic. They rent multiple studios for their kitchen, their freezer, and to store their tables and chairs. Their SSD tax this September will be over $2,500. The Beltline has already broken their promise of transparency. None of our 100 studios spanning 5 street numbers received anything in the mail from the Beltline about this tax. They have not spoken to the small business landlords. They have spoken to the largest rental companies and land developers in Atlanta. The council has not heard the voices of small businesses, artists, and nonprofits because the Beltline did not include them in these conversations. As a landlord, we've had over 20% turnover above our typical rate. This is due to small businesses closing from COVID-19. I know landlords who have taken massive rent reductions to try and keep their tenants' small businesses afloat. When considering your tax, how can landlords pay extra when they've lost their tenants? This must be a citywide tax to reduce its financial burden. People come from all over the city to walk and enjoy the Beltline. We're looking at paying $25,000 to the SSD this September. Taxing businesses near the Beltline will increase the rental rate. This absolutely will push out small businesses, artists, and nonprofits, and legacy commercial renters. How high will rental rates need to be in 15, 20, 30 years to cover the increased property taxes?
Hi, it's Elizabeth.
calling from the Upper West Side CID. We're in sub-area 8 of the Beltline planning area. And our CID's biggest concern is that the SSD does not ensure the 2 miles of future Beltline in our CID get built. Right now, we are last on the implementation list. And when the SSD future funds are combined with other funding sources, they only ensure that the Beltline receives $300 million out of a $350 million price tag of finishing the trail. And that last $50 million of the capital stack represents our area. Our area has contributed over $70 million to the Beltline CAD already in the last 10 years. And the group of CAD properties within our CID funds over 20% of the current CAD revenue. Our CID section of the Beltline SSD will make up the same or more percentage of the SSD revenue. We're asking Finance Executive Committee to amend the legislation to confirm that properties in sub-area 8 will see some benefit that justifies our inclusion in the tax district. We're only supportive of the SSD if the taxes collected from sub-area 8 are only spent on the trail in sub-area 8. Thank you.
Hi, this is Emma Tinsley representing the Old Fourth Ward Business Association. I'm calling today to express my opposition of the Beltline Special Service Tax District at this time. The Old Fourth Ward Business Association submitted a number of recommendations that we wanted to see made in order to support this legislation. Right now is a very difficult time for our small businesses, for renters, and smaller property owners in the neighborhood. And this legislation will take needed revenue from the community that could be used for public safety measures, better pedestrian infrastructure, and small business support. At this time, we ask that the legislation be postponed until the City of Atlanta has recovered from the global pandemic and businesses and renters are in a better position to take on this burden. This legislation puts an undue burden on the most vulnerable population in our neighborhood, which are renters and leaseholders, and does not tax single-family tax owners who have equally benefited from the Beltline and the economic development that it has brought. While we want to see the rest of the Beltline completed, we also know that the creation of the Beltline on the east side has come with its own particular set of challenges, and without better pedestrian infrastructure, safety, lighting, sidewalks outside of this just the Beltline path, our businesses have a hard time attracting people from the Beltline into other parts of our neighborhood. We need better accountability from the Beltline. We need more wayfinding and more commitment to connectivity in order to support a proposal that impacts our property owners at this time.
Okay, so that concludes public comment. Council members, anyone wish to be recognized?
Public hearing.
Respond.
Motion to close the public hearing.
All right, there's a motion has been made to close the public hearing.
Second, Mexicate.
And Mr. Mexicate seconds. Seeing no discussion, let's open that procedural vote. Close the public hearing. All right, the public hearing has been closed 5-0 to 1. And with that, I will swing it back to the chair.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shook. I believe that is the end of our meeting, with the reminder that we will be finalizing that paper with our budget priorities on Monday that we sent forth with that recommendation. So bring those recommendations to the meeting on Monday, and we will amend or substitute that paper there. And Ms. Kempson-Wright, am I missing anything else?
No, Madam Chair, I believe that is it.
And was that the final public hearing on the SSD paper, or is there another one coming up?
That is the final. That's the third and final.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you all for being here today. This was a long meeting. We got a lot covered, but I appreciate my colleagues who are here and appreciate the public that's listening in. And we will be back in 2 weeks and be at our full council meeting on Monday. Thanks.